This is the Tabernacle Podcast with John Vermilya and me, Britton Bishop. What's up, John?
We need to start with a full disclosure. I had zero to do with pressuring, asking.
Oh, you asked.
Years ago. Our guest today is fantastic. And I just want to say, Britton, well done. I didn't know it took a departure.
We did it.
It took a departure for you.
I would have faked one years ago if I would have known this was all it took.
Faked a departure to get today's guest on. Yeah.
Yes. Today we are joined by the one and only Darcey Vermilya. Yeah. Let's go.
I don't like you very much right now,
We
Britton.
did it.
Yeah.
We did it this
Now-
week.
Yeah.
Two people.
Two. Yeah.
Two
Go ahead.
people this week that have said, for my entirety of being one of the hosts of this podcast, I will, and I quote,
Never.
never
Yeah.
be on that podcast.
Yeah.
Bill Stone,
Yeah.
Darcey Vermilya.
That's right.
Got them both in 1 week.
When you first
And-
asked me years ago, I think I laughed.
You did,
Oh,
actually.
she was like-
And it was an
Immediately.
It was
evil
like-
queen laugh. It was like, little boy.
But we
Right.
made it.
Yeah. Now, what I didn't tell Darcey is that off camera, Britton was so excited after the Bill recording
Oh, geez.
that he said he used a literary device. And he said something like, I can't believe it. In 1 week, I'm going to have my two great white whales on the podcast, referring to Moby Dick.
Thank you
And
for
I said-
calling me a great white whale.
I told you, if she finds out she's walking out that door.
I do have an offer, though. For Benji, I'll pay him $1,000 if he shuts those cameras off.
$1,000?
$1,000.
Don't do it, son. Say less.
I love it. We are, we're on the home stretch. We got a few episodes left. This isn't the last episode. The podcast will continue.
Oh, yeah.
Podcast
Yeah,
family.
don't give false hope. They have to listen to this torture beyond. Yeah.
But this is one of my last. I think we have 3 or 4. Everybody now wants to be on the podcast.
Good. Let's podcast all week.
So we're cranking them out. I have nothing else to do. So,
Why not?
So here we are. I'm just going to have to get a camper to sleep in Buckley. So, but we're cranking them out, and we are joined today by Darcey Vermilya. We are doing Darcey's Change Life story.
No, not really. Just kind of
Her version
more
of it. Yeah.
bullet points.
Yes.
the
Yes.
version she wants to share.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I love that because at the end of the day, it's your story, and you can share it however you want. So, I don't know. We'll just start in the beginning. Where were you born, raised, grew up in a
Right
Christian
here,
home?
I think, in one of these
Yeah.
rooms in this church, probably. So I was born in Traverse City, osteopathic hospital that no longer exists.
Born in Traverse City.
Yeah, and raised here. Attended church here from a toddler, I assume. I think that's when my grandfather would bring all of the kids to church every week. He'd pick us up, and so I was born and raised here.
How big was Coon Nation back then? Was that all of Buckley, essentially?
No,
No? Big family?
First of all, let's
oh,
define who the Coons are for the
Yeah.
podcast family.
Sorry.
That's Darcey's maiden name.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just want to let's just be clear.
Yes.
So we had five siblings, or
Okay.
5 kids in the family, all pretty close in age.
I just see the pictures of you guys as Thanksgivings now,
Oh yeah,
and I
it
get
was-
so much social
Yeah.
anxiety just
Yeah.
based off the setup.
Yeah, I
of
can't believe
those
we didn't
tables.
have you there just to experience it once.
If
before
only there
you
was a
left.
bigger building you guys
I
had
know.
access to that
I
you
know.
could put tables
Yeah.
at.
We're gonna have to
But,
start bringing it to the church.
I mean, we did have a large extended family on
Yeah.
both sides that we
Okay.
would get together with. But
So grew
Yeah.
up going to church when Grandpa would bring you
yep,
to the Buckley Gospel, was it
yes,
the full Gospel
yeah.
back then?
And then
No,
soon after, my whole family, my parents, and that we were here
So-
4 days a week, 3 days a week, or whatever, however
Jeez.
many times it was open.
So what was that like for you growing up in a small town, going to the church in the small town, kind of this, yes, you were doing it, but what was kind of your vantage point, view, thoughts on this like God church thing at that time?
I mean, we had a really close community in the sense of like family friends that we did, went camping together in the summers, came over to my parents' house every Sunday night. My mom cut hair. It was like close, tight-knit families, all that still attend here, which is pretty cool. Theologically, it was really messed up. So there was a lot of legalism and not so much. It's not so much works based as appearance based, and the outward, what you weren't allowed to wear, what you had to wear, what places you couldn't go, things you couldn't do, things you couldn't listen to, and so I don't think I was even aware that was weird or off until probably high school. It was just, that was church to me. That was God. I was saved 80, 90 times probably. Went up to the altar. I don't know.
Congrats.
Every night, dear Lord, forgive me for my sins and come back into my heart. It was like a nightly, it was just, God was this judge that if you had a bad thought or didn't, do something right off the list, then you weren't right with him. So
yeah, that's tough. Isn't that so much how people still today kind of have this just like wrong view of like God is this cosmic killjoy that's just up there waiting to smite you at the minute of mistake. And I think that this idea of grace is it's a big concept, but it's a freeing one as well. But we can get into that later. So you said in high school, kind of the eyes, you kind of saw like, maybe this isn't actually what this is supposed.
And it helped. One thing I'm grateful for is that my parents did not enforce those in our lives. Like my mom was even on the church board, and she read the Bible, so she kind of knew this doesn't seem right.
Yeah,
and did not, So we had an average, Midwestern, rural Midwestern life in that way. We didn't have to outside of the church. It wasn't that it was secret. That's just not the way she raised us. So we didn't have to. I say she because she was a believer before my father. So she was kind of like the spiritual leader for a while. So
like Darcey could wear pants.
Yeah,
I could wear
dresses.
Yeah. And there are a lot of families.
You could play with face cards. You could play euchre.
Yeah. And it wasn't. And a lot of families were like that. That attended the church. They weren't.
You could go to dances.
Yeah.
I bet you were an aggressive euchre player.
Yes, we were.
Oh, not even close.
We had a
Don't ever ask me
board.
to play. She'll bust.
Have you ever played Dutch Blitz?
No,
I haven't.
Hope is deep, and we are to the point in marriage where I said I won't play this game with you. I can't do it. It's too much chaos. You're mean.
Yeah.
I couldn't get my family.
I think I was her euchre partner maybe once ever. But it's not about me today. I said I would never do that again because I don't know what I'm doing.
So grew up, going to church, started realizing this stuff, high school. So how did you end up in Indiana?
Well, my twin sisters had wanted to go to the college that my grandfather had gone to at Fort Wayne Bible College at the time. That's what it was called. And they went to visit, and they did not have a nursing program. So they told them about this little college, Marion College, 45 minutes south of there. And they went unseen, never showed up never saw the school, had no idea anything.
How much older are they than you?
4 year, or 4th grade. Like they would have been seniors when I was a freshman.
Gotcha.
So they went there, and I got to know some of their friends that would come up and visit. And so to me, it just felt natural to go there, even though I didn't know anybody except them and some of their friends. It was kind of like the only college I had any experience with at all. So yeah, just.
What was your thoughts going into going to like a Bible? Well, did you like? It was clearly marketed as a Bible college.
No, I mean, Christian
school. What was kind of your thoughts going into that?
I mean, I had faith. It definitely was way like warped in the sense of my view of God, but I can't say that I had my own faith really at the time, but I wasn't like running from it.
Right.
There wasn't like this prodigal, I have to run from anything.
Right.
I still was kind of unaware of really grace and God's love for me and that kind of stuff. So, but I wasn't running from it.
Gotcha.
And so to me, it just felt the safest place, the most comfortable place. Yeah. I mean, my parents definitely were like, you're going to college. It was not like, they wanted that for us, and which I'm thankful for. But
And I think, and this is your story, I'm not trying to recreate it here, but there were voices of grace within the church upbringing that you had. And one of them you already mentioned, but we didn't talk about, was your grandfather.
yes,
Forrest Kuhn, who was an itinerant evangelist and was, I think if I've got the story right, he actually preached the revival in a tent meeting in Buckley years ago that it ended up becoming the Buckley Tabernacle.
Is that the guy who would take his teeth out?
yes, when he would preach.
Tell us, Darcey.
You gotta
Yeah.
tell me.
Well, I mean, I wasn't. It wasn't when I was. This is
Right,
before.
right. These are the
before me.
stories.
But so my aunt Meady, it's Mita, but we called her Aunt Meady Duff. His sister, and her husband. I didn't know him. He was gone before I was old enough, and they lived in the little white brick house where the parking lot across from T2 is, the one that the food pantry was in, that some of our staff lived in before that, and they had on their heart to start a church, if I have the story right. My dad will correct me because he's the unofficial historian for Buckley and the Tabernacle. But, and so they invited my grandfather to come and preach the tent meeting, which lasted like a month, I think it's like weeks, like every night there would be a service. And out of that came a small group of like Sunday school class that started in the home of my great aunt. And then the church, that's how the church started. So
That's awesome. And he would take his teeth out when he'd get fired up?
yeah, he got fired up. He was
John takes his
old-timey.
glasses
Yeah.
off, but this guy
Yeah.
took his
He
teeth
took
out.
his teeth out.
But
Because they'd fly out if he did it. Man. He got fired up. Forrest Kuhn, revivalist.
Oh,
But yeah,
man.
he was definitely the main influence in my mom becoming a Christian, and just he was just full of grace. And so that definitely.
Did he stay around the area?
Yeah, but then if I have it right, they did not live here. They lived downstate at the time, but then moved here, and he still traveled. He never was like the preacher here.
Right.
Did travel. I think he worked at the mental hospital in Traverse City in the morgue. He would tell stories.
Is that the one that's now like a restaurant?
Yeah, or it's like buildings.
That's so
I think
weird.
that was kind of like a side thing, and I may have that a little wrong, but there's so many stories he would tell that.
Well, he lived that lifestyle of like old school itinerant, which was we, like our evangelists and our pastors, poor.
Right.
So that guy was hard scrabble, working whatever he could just to preach the gospel.
Right.
I met him one time, and he was a character, dude. He was funny.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah.
So you go to Indiana Wesleyan, new environment, all the new things. How was that kind of transitioning into leaving little old Buckley and going to a new place?
I mean, I was definitely like deer in headlights, never really being anywhere else but here. I mean,
how big is Indiana Wesleyan?
Well, at the time, probably 900 students that
How
were
big
on
was
campus.
Buckley?
The school?
No, at the time of the town.
The town, let's see, I think there's like 900 now. There was maybe
7, 5.
5 or 6.
So there were more students at your school than in your whole entire community that you came from. Okay.
For sure.
That's an important detail for me.
Yes. And it was huge to me. I mean, I couldn't have handled a state college or university with thousands. I would have come home in a day. But yeah, so freshman orientation, I meet my roommate for the first time. She was sisters to my sister's suite mate. So we had met through letters, kind of like it was like, hey, you guys should be roommates. And within like that first weekend ended with a Sunday social, and her and I were sitting there, and this is where, John, you're not allowed to interrupt me. You cannot interject. You are changed.
Am I in timeout?
Yes, you are in timeout. So his roommate had a little crush on my roommate and asked him, hey, let's go over and sit. There's that girl, Laura, that, had never really met, but he had seen her a few times and convinced him to come and sit at our table. And so.
Such a crazy concept to me of moving in with somebody that because for me, I knew who my roommate was, but I looked at his social media. I
we
knew
had nothing.
everything
No,
about
We wrote
this dude.
letters the summer before to
That's
get
so
to know each
crazy
other.
to me.
Like,
Bro, this is 1988.
I know,
yeah,
it's just-
yeah. It's like, hey, what color is your comforter? You know,
In a letter?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah. Oh,
geez.
handwriting. I still have all of my letters because that was,
That's just how you did
yeah.
it.
You guys look through text, and
Yeah.
so does the rest of the world. The same ones probably, but So we met John, and that whole night was us talking. I mean,
First impression of John Vermilya.
oh
What do you want? No, you don't have to hold back. You can say whatever you want. I'm excited about this.
Yeah, I don't have to hold back. Yes, I do. So, I mean, he was very charismatic, like, talked a lot. I don't know. I
Did he
mean,
have a
we
mullet
definitely.
at this point?
Oh yeah. Well, wait, was that 90? This was 88. I think
Okay.
89 was the.
So you knew him when he got a mullet,
Oh yes,
and you stuck with it.
I stuck with it, but everyone did.
Okay.
Everyone had one. You got to remember that was like everyone had one. So, but yeah, we immediately hit it off. Kind of through that week, saw each other like in social settings, and then he had asked me on a date the following Sunday, and and he canceled it on me an hour before, and we will not go into why, but so he
Go into why.
no, I mean.
Okay.
There was someone had come to make sure that it didn't happen. That was,
Gotcha.
Like, hey, she heard and was like, oh no,
I wasn't a two-timer.
yeah,
Oh, another-
no,
It was
it was
Gotcha.
It
Gotcha.
was in, yeah. So, so he canceled, and I was bummed. And his roommate and my roommate said, hey, let's go to Dairy Queen, and we got into his car and we did that, and then they started telling me about this James Dean. I'm like, who's that? I mean, is he from Music? Is he like, I don't know. I mean, we had two
Right.
channels growing up. It's like, I don't know anybody,
Yeah.
Hollywood or musicians or whatever they were. I didn't know any of that. So they said, oh, let's go see his grave. He's got a cool gravesite in Fairmount. So we were headed down Highway 9, and then we were in a pretty horrific car accident at that time.
Oh, dang.
So yeah, we I was not in a seatbelt. I mean, it was a complete miracle. All the paramedics, the cops, all said they can't believe that anyone lived out of it. My roommate and Tommy were like horribly injured, and he had eventually had to be life flighted to the big hospital in Fort Wayne. I came out of it with a couple broken ribs, and my ankle was kind of crushed under the seat, but I have no
I think
idea
I've
how.
seen that picture.
Yeah,
on
yeah, it's
Facebook or
crazy.
something.
It's a Mustang wrapped
It was
around
just
a
the way
tree.
it hit. It kind of hit between the front door and back door driver. So it wrapped around it.
Gotcha.
And so I woke up, and it was like the tree was inch from my left side. His seat was pushed up on top of me and kind of wedged me in this little bubble. So it just was just a miracle that
Jeez.
any of us came out of it. So yeah, I'm show up at the hospital, or we're at the ER, and they're trying to save the lives of them, and I'm just kind of deer in headlights, like what, in shock,
Yeah.
But then I'm thinking I have to try to get a hold of John, because Tommy is his roommate, best friend from high school, and would be the one that would know to call his parents.
Gotcha.
I didn't have any idea. Like, I wasn't thinking that the cops were doing that immediately or what. So I contact the dorm. You had to call the desk because there was no,
Do you guys have phones in your rooms?
no.
No.
I called the
Outside our-
desk of the dorm.
Outside our dorm rooms.
No,
you
but
have
I
a phone on the
actually
wall.
think I called the desk of the dorm. And so he showed up at the hospital with the girl.
Well, she was driving.
Yeah.
I said, we're going to go to the hospital because there's been an accident.
Yeah.
Dang.
So yeah, but that was definitely a pinnacle
How many days into freshman year did that happen?
within 1 week.
Dang.
Yeah. So it's kind of a blur, but yet feels like it happened yesterday. It's kind of crazy.
Now, is this the point that I interject a thing?
Yes.
All right. So in that hospital, you've got all the Christian
Oh,
University
gosh.
students, right?
Maybe not.
And they're all there praying, and dude, I mean, it's cool. It's part, and I'm scanning the room, because I've just gone in to say, yeah, that's my roommate. Here's the number. Here's his parents, right? And this other person is hysterical, and the one that shall not be named, right? And we get to it was like a movie, Britton. We get there, and there's Darcey sitting in a wheelchair in her Guess jeans that have been torn by those dastardly ambulance drivers.
It's like my ankle hurts, dude.
Yeah, and they cut it all the way. Well, let's not go there. Yeah. And so she said that I arrived with that girl, but I left her at the door and I went to Darcey. It was a moment, bro.
I think he gave me
was a moment.
Denim jean jacket to wear because
I
was cold.
Said, put this on. Yes. And the one knew that it was over, and this one knew that it began. At least that's how I remember it.
What song was playing in your head during all that?
It was Richard Marx, I'm sure. No, it was Phil Collins. In your eyes. Yeah. Oh, no singing. Sorry. Singing. Say anything.
So
Peter Gabriel.
Accident.
Yep.
1 week into college.
Right.
What was kind of this? Where was kind of like your relationship with like? What's going on in your relationship with Christ at this time with God? Like, is there, fear? I don't know. Like, what was going on in that space?
It definitely was like a pinnacle time where I was kind of decided that I am getting serious about my faith. Like, there's no question. I mean, when I woke up, my first words were, "Oh, Jesus," like not in a vain type of way. It was like, it was a very much of a wake up call. And like I said, it wasn't that I was running; it was that I was running blind. Like I had no idea much about God or the truth, at least. So it definitely started out that kind of began the faith that was my own.
What would you say, like that process? Because there's so many people. This can be a bunny trail we go on for a minute. Like there are so many people within our church, people that listen to this podcast, people we come across every day that are in a similar spot to like you're saying, like, I'm not running from God. Like I don't know what it is. I don't know how to start that I don't know what that means. I have this idea of what my childhood or my grandparents or parents taught me, but I don't know. Like, so when you say you started that process of like, I'm getting serious about this, like, what did that look like for you? And then like, is there encouragement maybe to the person that's in that space that's like, maybe I do need to take this seriously? Like, so.
Oh gosh, that's a long question.
It is. And you can give a long answer or a short answer.
Well, I mean, I think everyone has to come to that place, and it doesn't have to be this extraordinary, like a tragic moment, even though I think a lot of times it is. But we just all have to come to that place of deciding, am I going to believe or not? And am I going to, run towards God or not? And that was kind of like, I didn't have a whole lot extra to add to that. That was it, you know? But, so yeah, that's.
So at that time, what did that look like for you? Was it like getting more serious about the Bible?
Yeah, it was just deciding to, because before it was, okay, I got to get saved again because I had a bad thought or said a bad word or, some bad behavior. And it was this constant, how to make God happy. But it was weird because I hadn't yet been taught anything different. But grace kind of, I understood it a little more, and I don't know why. There's not really an answer to that. On why. I mean, obviously the Spirit was calling me into that type. But it was more just deciding that this isn't just about behavior or.
It's like that relation, like I'm going to shift from religion to like this relationship. With,
Yeah. Well, one of the things, if I'm not mistaken, that as I look back, and obviously we've been married for more than a minute, Darcey comes to Indiana Wesleyan, and your whole concept of Christianity was a small country church. And so it was, the rest of the world and this small country church. Then you'd have an experience like at a small country Bible camp. Probably the largest event I think you said you'd ever been a part of is against her will. She did go to a huge youth convention in Urbana. That was a big deal in Urbana, Illinois, which, as it just so happens, we found out years later, both of us were at. I mean, there are thousands there, right? And so college was something you embraced because there were people excited about Jesus. There was new music. There were professors that could take you deep. And I mean, I remember sitting in Old Testament Bible with you, and I was fired up because Wilbur Williams was teaching us about Jehu, and and like it was a time where we're learning a ton. Now, I'd been like ghetto and lived all over the place, but for her, it was like this brand new world of, there's more Christians than just the 100 or so that were part of your church. I mean, would you say that's accurate? That was just something that you embraced?
Oh, yeah.
There's devotions in the dorm. There's girls like you that are excited about the Lord. There's other people that are running, and so it was a good environment for both of us. But I think especially for her, it was just this whole new world. You loved college.
Yeah. You
said it was like those are some of the best years.
Yeah, I didn't have kids in my class really that went to church, like one or two maybe.
You mean in high school?
And right. And even though we had large family friend groups, I don't know that there was one actually in my class, like someone that I went, So yeah, just being surrounded by other Christians that were fired up
and music
about
music. I mean, at the time, it wouldn't be cool today, but it was like contemporary music. It was not the hymns that. And nothing. We love hymns too, but it was just a brand new thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I told you before, we had Rich Mullins in our chapel, barefoot and sitting at the piano. It's like,
how did that make you feel, Darcey?
Yeah.
What's your opinion of barefoot in church?
No, let's not go there.
Let's not go there. He's never allowed to do that. But yeah, I just absorbed chapels. I was not the kid that was jaded that came in. It was just kind of absorbing it all and it was back to like right after the car accident. I think it was the next day, so which would have been Labor Day, because this was the Sunday before Labor Day where the accident happened. Is kind of when John and I we were. I think he kissed me up in the gym office area. On
the stairwell,
like the day after. It was like. I was probably on pain meds.
She kissed me back.
No, but from that point, we were together. There was no question after that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of the beginning part of college. Probably our sophomore year, we had a couple glitches, which we will not talk about. But yeah, so I learned
don't mess with Darcey.
Yeah. Yeah. Or spit water at me or Alex.
Oh, that wasn't me. I never did that. Oh, my days. So, yeah. So spit. That sounds okay. So I'm on the soccer team. And
what did you think of soccer at this time?
Well, we had soccer in high school. That was our sport here. So I kind of grew up watching it.
Gotcha.
So it wasn't, we didn't have girls team, but that was our guys' fall season.
Oh, Buckley didn't have football back then either.
No, well, they don't. Okay. Right. So we did have soccer. No.
Gotcha.
No.
Buckley
so it was kind of like.
Buckley has the oldest soccer program in northern Michigan, 1969.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So my roommate, I think my second year, first year, whatever. We're on the soccer team together. He's a big personality. What he didn't know, and what I was beginning to learn, is I'm dating a force of nature, right? And so we're sitting at Burger King, the three of us, and he was a poker. And he was trying to poke her.
Like Bill Stone.
Yeah.
Kind of like.
He is, but he was, why do I always have friends like that?
Yeah.
So he had some water in a straw, and across the table, just like where you are, we're just eating, just giving some food before wherever, and he shot water at her, and it got on her thing. And she was drinking Coke. She had a full Coca-Cola right in her hand. She whips the top off and goes just like that. And he was like, whoa,
I warned him.
And there's laughing, but I can't believe you just covered me in Coca-Cola, right? And so I get up and I'm like, bro, don't mess with. And I refill her Coke. And he's like, Darcey, listen, I was just playing, And she's like, you shot water on my, And we sit down and he just kept going, Mm-hmm. As soon as I set the Coke down, she goes, and now he's like, whoa, girl, you know what? And now I'm laughing hysterically, trying to be the gentleman. Refill her Coca-Cola.
I didn't do it the third time.
I refill her Coca-Cola. When I set it down this time, he was like, I'm not sitting here if you're going to do that again. Right. But yeah.
Force of nature.
Yeah. That's you just don't
mess with Darcey.
Darcey doesn't play.
No.
You know, like the little thing. No, it's going to come back twofold. It's biblical. It's like the book of Joel with locusts and plague. So that's just don't spit water on Darcey.
Noted.
Bill, are you listening? Don't do it, Bill. Don't do it.
So you're coming out of the car accident. You and John are official. You're just taking it all in when it comes to the faith side of college. What was your major at this?
I think I started pre-med, but then I got into organic chemistry, and it was it. It was like, nope,
this isn't for me. Literally everyone says.
This is not for me.
Organic chemistry must.
And you have to have a certain type of professor that can,
right,
teach it. And I just was like, nope. And I don't know if I changed immediately to, well, now it's clinical lab science, and is what the official major is called. But I don't know if I had decided right away. I knew I wanted to be something in the medical.
Gotcha.
But not nursing. I was way too shy for that. It was like, and that's the thing. People don't call me shy. I was so shy as a freshman in college. I mean, so many times with John, I'd wanted to just dig a hole and hide in it because he's singing out loud. Our first date that we actually went on, he's dancing on the hood of his station wagon to reggae because I didn't know what reggae was. It was a Be Happy or Red Wine, whatever those.
UB40, Red
It was
Wine.
the first time
She
that
didn't
song
know what reggae was.
Yeah, that song was
It's
released.
from Buckley.
I was doing my best,
but it was
Bob.
also just released that fall. So
Okay.
I was like, and he, of course, living in Jamaica and Haiti, that
Yes.
was like, so I was just mortified. Like
She kind of liked
he's just
it. She
acted
kinda
so
liked
goofy, and I'm just like pretending I don't know him much of the time. I mean, I was so shy.
That's how it is on Sundays.
Like I just, yeah. So yeah.
So shy, but figuring out kind of what would you say was, as you're like absorbing these chapels and the devotions and the music and all these things, like when did you start to see, like, was there a moment, or maybe there was a moment, maybe it was just this long obedience of like when you made the gear shift of like, oh, this is a relationship with Jesus, not just a religion of rules that I'm following.
I mean, I definitely was taught grace, or at least introduced to it. It wasn't fully realized for sure. But my first or my only job at college as a student was working in the religion department. I was one of the secretaries there. So I'm surrounded by 10 Bible professors and
Harvard grads.
Yeah, that are, and my favorite, Dr. Hughes, was our New Testament Bible professor, and his office was right across from mine. But he was like this grandfather figure type, and would just sit and talk and just ask questions and kind of and answer questions about that I had, or but it was just being surrounded by that. I think it was just all of it.
Do you remember any of the big questions you had that was like, I need an answer to this?
Right.
And if you don't, it's fine. I'm just always
curious.
curious.
I probably had them.
Right.
My memory.
Right.
It's like I just don't remember
For sure.
any specific.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I was absorbing the Bible on my own. I was, reading more than I probably had my entire life.
Right.
I think it was my first NIV,
1980.
The KJV,
the old NIV.
Yeah.
The
1984.
Yeah.
You did go on a missions trip that was pretty pivotal.
Yeah, so that was probably the
for you.
first time that I would say it was the exact same year. We were broke up, and that we both, and John's talked about that on his on the podcast or even on stage at times, where we were kind of called individually, separately into some kind of ministry, having no idea what that even meant.
What year was that in college?
My sophomore year.
Okay.
So I had gone to, which was huge out of my comfort zone, to New York City with YWAM on a trip that our college one of the professors was putting on or leading. And at some point in there just felt like I don't want just a punch clock time, which is nothing wrong with that.
Right.
I just knew God was calling me into some kind of ministry.
Yeah.
Like I said, we were broke up, and he had that same experience that summer soon after. And then we the end of that summer, John and I got back together, and I don't know how far into where that kind of culminated into joining Missionary Athletes International after we were married, but he had been going on the mission trips every year with them. And so we got engaged the end of our junior year, got married our senior year. And at some point in there, I don't know the exact right before, right after, but we both felt like this is where we're going to join. They had asked about him joining staff. And so we had decided that's what we were going to do after we got married.
How was that for you, kind of knowing, like, you took all these science classes and pre-med, all the stuff, and then it's like, all right, I'm going to call an audible here, and I'm just going to say yes to Jesus in ministry. Like, yeah, you had the YWAM, but was there a moment of like, what the heck am I doing? Like, what did I do for the last 4 years, and now I'm going to do this instead? Like, what was that kind of process?
It wasn't really hard for me, because one of the other reasons why I left the pre-med, besides organic chemistry, was I wanted a life. I did, when I saw the track that took, it's like, no, I wanted to get married and have kids, and I wanted to be able to even stay home with my kids. That was that wasn't a cultural or religious pressure. It was just what I wanted.
Like a desire, like God put there.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to have a career, and I did that, but it wasn't, that part wasn't hard. I mean, the hardest part was knowing we were going to be moving away 5 states or however many states that was going to be between us, and that was going to be the hardest part.
Okay, so let's dig into that a little bit. Okay. So you're moving,
right?
Not because I'm going through it or anything.
Good luck.
So you're moving from, because Indiana was a huge move.
It was, and we lived there 2 years after getting married, raising support.
Gotcha.
And we lived with our family because we were trying to raise support. We didn't know when we were going to get it, so we didn't want to get like a year's lease.
Right.
So
you had to raise a certain amount before you could go to start working at Missionary Athletes International. Right. And were you traveling at all back and forth? Were you guys traveling, raising support? It was
just we were here. It was mostly letters. I mean, I coached the women's soccer team, so I'm working at the university. So we're still in that bubble.
Gotcha.
And what I didn't know, I think I knew, but I was in my world. I mean, I've spent so many years just being a selfish person.
Same.
I had no idea how big of a deal it was for her to move to a brand new city where she knows no one.
Yeah.
Where like she'd never lived in a city that size. I mean, people in the South talk like they got grits in the mouth, you know, the weather was nice. You know, we went to visit once, and she was like, okay, this is cool. But
like, I'd go on vacation here, but I don't know about.
I remember stopping in a Waffle House.
Praise God.
Oh yeah, praise God.
Never.
On the way. Yeah.
Never get me one again.
And the waitress came and was taking our order. I won't try to imitate it, but Darcey had to ask her 3 times.
Yeah, I had no idea what she was saying.
Like, excuse me, what was that? And I'm interpreting this hard Southern deal.
Translating.
And then when she went away, I'll never forget, Darcey goes, John, I can't live here. I don't understand what these people are saying.
That's just Waffle House, though.
That was just Waffle House.
You guys know Paul Epperson.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, but it's
Paul Epperson and I are both from the South. We've eaten a lot of Waffle House.
And we
were at a Waffle House in Clemson, South Carolina. We were doing an event together. And this lady comes up to take our order. Her name was Peggy Sue. No lie. That is her real name.
We had the same waitress.
And she talked to us, and she walked away, and Paul Epperson goes, I have no idea what she just said.
Well,
and that's how you know. Yeah.
That's how you know if he can't.
So it might have been her, like grandma.
Right.
Maybe
hey, grandma?
Her mom.
I'm not that much.
I'm sorry. She was older.
Yeah. The point is, this was a huge step of courage for Darcey. And courage is not being afraid. Courage is being scared to death and going anyways.
Yeah,
and I was a lot of bit oblivious.
Gotcha.
And I kind of didn't know either what it was going to be like. If I hadn't felt that that's where we were supposed to be, I would have left it. I would have said, no, we're not doing this. That's the only thing that kept me going. And probably
was knowing that Jesus had called you.
Yes.
To it.
And the first 2 years, I remember telling John sometime after about a year and a half, if you told me right now, I think God's calling us back, I would have gotten a backpack of stuff I needed, and I would have hitchhiked back. I mean, that's how hard especially that first year.
Well, I can
leading
imagine
into 2
you're
years was.
you're transitioning to multiple
city.
states away,
Yeah.
huge city.
Yeah, I worked downtown. They called it
And John's
uptown.
and John's not an accountant or a lawyer or a doctor. He's raising so you're moving to this huge city in faith, and it's not like, and we're going to make $100,000 when we move there. It's like, we're going to raise support.
No. And they
live here.
let us come where we had like hardly anything raised.
Like
maybe
50%, maybe.
we
60%.
maybe had like $12,000 a year.
Jeez.
And so I knew I would go and work full time.
Yeah.
But full time 8 to 5 is one thing, but he's traveling overseas for a month at a time, going on pre-tour like setup trips. He's started playing on the pro team where they're gone for 3 or 4 days a week in Tennessee, or and I can't just take off and
And when she is home, many times I'm at a practice or at a thing.
Right, until 8 o'clock at night, and then I'm going to bed because I'm getting up early. So
Right.
it
Were
was.
you working in a lab at that time?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I was at a like little hospital clinic center thing.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was a really, really hard first year or two. And
in the midst of that difficulty, was there ever a moment of like, man, did I hear God wrong? Like,
no, it's weird. And no, I didn't. It's like I knew that, like I said, that was the only thing.
Yeah.
Because it's not that I didn't meet people. I mean, there were loads of like young adults.
Yeah.
Like the whole staff was young adults, but everybody's has their own life. They're also traveling and having jobs, and many had little kids. And I mean, it was crazy because I would literally go to was Brian the president at the time?
He was head coach.
Head coach.
Yeah.
But he was,
Yeah, he was
so
director.
he and his wife, they're the ones that we had stayed with when we had visited. And she had 3 kids at the time. And I would just go and at her house and help cook dinner and help do help their kids with their homework and hang out in the evenings, because it was like I would come home and it would just be me.
Yeah.
And that was crazy, coming from a large family, going to a house of 8 girls in college, and then being married, but living with siblings, his sister and my sister, while we were raising support, to being alone in the city.
In an apartment. In Charlotte, North Carolina.
So that was just a huge blessing to be able to just do that and be, but then around year 2 is when so he was going to be taking a trip to Russia in the summer. And I just decided, and I'd gone to my boss and said, I would like a 1 month off without pay, but would I be able to do that? And they said no, which makes sense. I'm a 8 to 5 Monday through Friday worker. And I just decided, okay, I'm going to get my notice and right before that quit the job, which was our income. Because whatever came in, when I say we had $12,000 a year raised, it's like whatever came in each month, we got. So it might be $200 came in. We got paid once a month. Right. And that had to be, so it was just this huge change but I just felt like my job, if family came and visited, I still had to work Monday through Friday. It's like I couldn't even visit with family when they visited, or so it was just a very lonely time. And so I decided so I just
she
decided
quit the
to
job
quit.
so she could go on the mission trip with me
to Russia.
Right.
Yeah.
How was that?
Oh my days.
Buckley, Russia. I mean,
no, Russia 1994 is not Russia today.
Yeah.
It was rough.
Yeah, it was rough. And
I know your personality now. I can imagine prepping to go to Russia. Yeah. How was that process? Like, was there?
I mean, I was excited. I was excited to finally be able to go and be part of it. With at that time maybe 30 to 40 other young adult, because it was a men's tour.
There was like one other woman.
Yeah, there was one other woman that went.
She was like the trainer.
Yeah, so her and I, roomed together and whatever. I mean, we visited a prison where the guys were doing the men were doing they were showing the Jesus film something like that, and her and I had used the bathroom, and so one of the guards, nobody spoke English. Like, we had translators with us. Well, the translator is a man.
Russian prison.
So men's
I'm a bad husband.
Prison guard leads us through the prison to use a bathroom, like through cells. It was crazy.
How terrified were you?
Oh, absolutely terrified. It was one thing being surrounded. There were 30 men around
Right.
us, and then during games, there would be on the team maybe 20 players. Their bags would be lined up on the ground, and her and I had to guard them because the kids would just come and they 94, so they didn't see a lot of Americans, and they just would come and rush and try to grab things out of the bag, and I'm holding the bag of cash because that's what the leader had to carry around to pay for everything, and it was just so terrifying for me. I loved it. It was
she's
hardcore.
She's terrified. She's hardcore, man.
But
she got lost in the Czech Republic.
Yes,
because we went to because it was Russia and then the Czech Republic, and I think it was on our souvenir day.
Well, it was the day they have a crystal factory there that's kind of well known, and it's a very nice crystal dishes and things like that. And everybody had gone to get gifts for their family, and one player, I don't remember his name.
Me neither. He's a real good guy.
One player, super shy kid, was like, "Oh, I wish I had gone and gotten something for my parents." That would, I said, "Well, I do too. We'll go." And it wasn't a long distance, but we're in Czech, and again, nobody, at least it didn't feel like it, spoke English. You can't understand. It's not like Spanish where you can read signs and kind of get what they're saying.
And this isn't Prague. This is like Bratislava.
Yeah. And we got lost coming back, and we don't even know where we're staying. We're trying to ask people. Like,
it's Cyrillic, man. You can't read it in English. It's like all consonants.
Yeah, but
you know what those are, Brent.
And it's only like maybe a mile between this. Like, it's kind of country, but we're trying to explain where we're staying to get help, and they can't understand us, and we don't know really where we're staying to even give them a clue. And the whole team is on the bus ready to leave for a event.
You guys are like running to the bus.
Crazy.
When we finally...
And I'm the adult, and he's like this 18-year-old kid. I'm a 24-year-old kid, but he's an 18-year-old kid. Like, what do we do? Holding our china and our crystal.
So there's one other moment, because I'll make jokes on stage about camping, and it's like Darcey doesn't want to pretend like she's homeless because she grew up doing that stuff. Right. Well, Russia, there was some camping, right? So we're in this town. I can't remember the name of the town. It's
Kostroma.
Was it Kostroma? It was super far north, and we're experiencing white nights. You know what that is? Like, that's when it's so far north, the sun doesn't really go down. Like, it's weird there. It's like the sun, like, it finally gets dark about 2 a.m., and then it starts to get light again at 4 a.m. So it's like, it's just crazy, and it's dark, and it's cold, and we've just played a game, and someone had the brilliant idea, we're going to do homestays.
Yeah, they dropped us off. A bus pulls up at night and says, "Okay, you two are going to go."
Thankfully, we got to stay together that night.
Yeah, that person over there, that's their home. They're going to take you. No English. And every players were put into groups of 2. And John and I, thankfully, we got...
I think the translator.
But who's the older translator?
Vladimir.
Yeah, Vladimir. Yeah. We got one of the translators to come with us. Thank you, Jesus. Because that would have been...
We're staying in a house with this little Russian family that's got nothing, right? And I've just had a game. Darcey's been on the road. We're making hand motions. They have posters of Baywatch on the wall.
And watched soap operas while we had dinner.
They're watching Young and the Restless in Russian dubbed over.
Old ones, like old.
Darcey's giving them spoiler alerts with hand motions because she watched that in high school.
We had the translator.
They
were so excited because I could tell them everything that happened because my grandma watched Young and the Restless, so we knew all.
My grandma did too.
So this was a moment of how like rustic this was, and I'm just saying this because I'm proud of my wife, and people might see her now and be like, "Well, what? You have no idea, right?" So these people, we. Asking about, hey, we'd like to take a shower. Oh, we don't have a shower. Okay. Oh, would you like to take a bath? Yeah. Okay.
Because it had been like 4 days.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's how it is. You just we weren't in hotel until.
So the bro starts going outside with a bucket, heating water at an outside water heater, bringing it in and dumping it in a bathtub until it's full. And meanwhile, we're like feeling bad because he had to work.
No, it's okay. You don't.
And they're
have
like,
to.
oh
It's
no. But we're going to do this one time. And Darcey looks at me, and I've just played a soccer game. I got mud, I got sweat, and all this kind of stuff. And she's like, yeah, I'm going first.
Absolutely.
So she took a bath, and it was just hardcore, man. It was like,
Jeez.
But yeah, so after that, I found the primo job that
Sorry,
was
after that trip. You mean?
after that trip.
Yeah.
Yep. So we got back, and I had to work, obviously, to eat, and so I was able to find a job that we could get insurance, which back then was easy and cheap. Thanks, Obamacare. But sorry, had to do that. Don't even get me started.
Oh, I love it.
So I was able to find a 3 to 4 day a week that I could let them know my schedule. If I had to be gone for 3 weeks on a trip, I mean, it was unpaid,
Right.
but there was just a lot of freedom in that. And it was working in surgeries at a hospital there,
Okay.
and loved my job. Did that for 5 more years. Was able to still go on trips with John every summer, and go visit home over the holidays. And they were closed on weekends because we worked with pathologists, so they're
Right.
closed. They're not there on weekends. They're not there on holidays. So it was just it was a great next job, because even though it was a lot less than I was doing, it was enough to
Yeah,
feed
so
us.
like you said yes, like felt like God was leading you to this trip. You say the yes, even though it doesn't really make a ton of sense to quit your job when
Right.
you're fundraising to go on a mission trip to Russia, and then God's like, all right, I'm going to take care of you.
Right.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
It was huge.
Did like at the time, because obviously when you look back at those things, you see it. Like at the time, were you like, man, like God moved, like my obedience matters? Like did that click at the time in that, or was it just?
I mean, I
like,
think that I had done that because I had done that a few times before. It just was a natural not to then doubt or question.
right.
I mean, I'm sure I wasn't all great.
Right.
I still was hard to live away, so far away from anything I knew, and but I was starting to build friendships.
Right.
And even though a lot of what was hard is that we had so many people come in and leave because they were coming in for a month. You were
Right.
traveling with them, and then they would leave and go to Connecticut or
Yeah.
New York or whatever. And so that was hard. There was a lot of, which was probably good, prepare me for being a pastor's wife. Thanks, Britton.
She had to do it.
Yeah, I had
Dropping
to.
bombs and throwing spears. Yeah.
So, and in this whole process, we are trying to have a baby and we're having problems with that, and having procedures and surgery and all kinds of tests done. And
So she gets it.
yeah.
Yep.
So, and wondering, watching between his sisters and brother, well, his sisters, it would be in my sisters and brother, there were 10 nieces and nephews born in that time that were born in that time that we were waiting, trying to have a baby,
Dang.
which was really hard
Yeah,
because
I
it was
bet.
like, I mean, my coworkers are like, you got another phone call, you got, another niece or nephew born, because it was just
Right.
hey, so-and-so, no cell phone still at this
Because
time.
how many siblings did you have?
I had 4 and he had 4.
Okay, so that's
So, and we're all both families close in age.
Right.
So it was all happening. It was
Yeah.
just the stages that.
Yep.
So we're going through that and trying to figure all that out. And it was 96 that we had Isabel after
It's a great year
finally
to have a
having a
kid.
surgery. Yes.
great year to have a
Why
kid.
is that?
It's a great year.
Oh,
That's
that
why
was
I'm-
your. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So yeah, we
Changed our life.
It did.
Changed our life.
It was soon after she was born that he decided to get off the pro team, which was like, thank you, Jesus, because I don't
Did
think
you
I can
see
do
it
this
way
anymore.
before he did?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I saw not that. Oh, he's not supposed to do this. It was the literally eggshells, wondering what mood was he going to come home in, because every practice was determining who dressed for
Right.
the game, and then if you got to the game, were you going to play? And if you did play, how did you play?
right.
And how was the, what did the coaches think?
Mhm.
And it was just this, and the traveling
Mhm.
and so it was just really, like, it was great. I mean,
Yeah.
that when he finally decided that, because it was just
It was
a
weird.
because
Just didn't
we
sit him down and like, listen, John, you're getting
No.
old, man.
No, we never talked about it. We were in the swimming pool of our apartment complex, and there were some other players that lived in the same apartment complex. And Isabel is maybe 6 months old, and I'm in the pool. Darcey's getting some sun, and I'm throwing her up in the air, and then down in the water, just having a blast. And the manager says, "Hey, Johnny V, by the way, what are you thinking about? What do you think about next year?" And I was like, "I got my child."
Yeah.
And like, your life changed.
Right.
It's like, nah, I'm good. I'm going to stay on staff, but
Yeah.
not going to play.
Mhm.
And it was easy. It was
Right.
just like that.
Mhm.
I don't think we ever even talked about
No.
it. But I remember coming over to her little lawn chair and I said, "Hey, I just told Tom I'm not playing next year." And she didn't. Now, you also have to know this about Darcey. She's not like, "Oh, thank you. I knew this."
It's about time, dude.
Yeah.
She was just like, "Okay, where are we getting lunch?" Moving on.
Yeah. So what was that kind
Matter of fact.
transitioning out into, he's on staff now, still
Yeah.
fun?
I mean, he still was on staff, but it was just one less. It was like a full-time job outside of being a full-time job.
How was having a kid?
Okay. I mean, there's nothing like it.
Right.
I mean, And,
You wanted that more than a career.
oh, yeah. Yeah.
I think she wanted a kid more than she wanted a husband.
So Isabel's your favorite kid?
Oh, no,
No,
I don't have a favorite kid.
Benjamin is her favorite son.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Dang it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was the very first time I understood grace fully because
And unconditional love.
because she's a few months old, and I remember thinking, there is literally nothing she could do. She could spit in my face. She could walk away, say she hates me, and there's nothing that she could do that could even minimize the love or make her not my child. And we both had that experience separately. I mean, like, it was so clear coming from such a legalistic background where there was God the Father didn't make sense.
Yeah.
I had a good dad, so it wasn't, but it didn't make sense in the sense that the way we learned about him.
For sure.
So yeah, that was definitely huge
Do you
for
think
our faith.
was it around that time that we had finally found our church? Not the church that your family went to, not the church that my dad was the pastor of, not that there's anything wrong with that, but we'd finally found a church that was ours together where a godly man taught the Bible. We learned about grace. It just so happened to be an evangelical free church. But was it before she was born?
It was right after.
Right after. Yeah, that we started going. It's got a different name now, but it was Church at Charlotte. And the pastor was Jim Callum Jr. And that was massive in our, for both of us.
Yeah, because when we went, it was like, well, what church do we go to? I mean, I was non-denom, and I know I didn't want that. Or, I mean, not non-denom, but I didn't want the same theology. I mean, there's Wesleyan, but there weren't a lot of those. And we had a good church in college, but it was kind of
Baptist churches in Charlotte.
Yeah.
But no, we were not going to go to a Baptist church.
No offense to Baptists. They were on every corner. There's Reformed churches, you know, all over the place.
But we just didn't, different denominations that wasn't really, I mean, we were aware of them, but not really. I mean, the Baptists, we had to stay away from them. That was what we were told our whole life, Told, soon after we had her, we found this church and just were and it was a good 30-minute drive for us in the city. I mean, it's probably 5 miles, but it took
all in.
Yeah. Yeah. And we volunteered. We worked preschool every Sunday. And it was every school from September to May, a service. It wasn't like you're going to volunteer once a month.
Yeah.
It was you're going to volunteer from September to May, every Sunday, one service with 4 or 5-year-olds. And so we did, that was our very first.
Why was it important to you stepping into a new church, doing that as a new family? Why was it important to you and to you guys to serve? Why was that a thing you felt like you needed?
We wanted community, and we had we worked in a parachurch, so we had a lot of other Christian young couples, but everybody went to different churches. They all, which is fine. I'm glad that we weren't all this, but we wanted church community. And it didn't matter how much church hurt, that term that I had experienced. It didn't matter that it was, because I knew that that's not what it was supposed to be. And so he was expository preaching every Sunday, came with our Bibles and took notes and talked about the sermon through the week and went to Bible studies, him in a men's group. I was in a women's group, and just absorbed it and loved it. And it was a big church, and we knew we were not going to find community if we didn't get involved. You have to. Yeah. And I mean, it probably was a few months where we just came and checked it out. Is this the church, that we want to make our own? And had tried a couple of others, but once we were a few weeks in, we we knew that it was
full on.
Mm-hmm.
So what was like kind of, so you're going to men's group, you're going to a women's group. As you're like digging into script, like what was that like relationally? Were you guys like talking about the things you were, I don't know. I'm just curious. Like,
You mean
just
marriage-wise?
as a married couple going to a new church together, you're serving, you're doing all these things. Like, how do you continue in your spiritual like formation and maturity and growth? Because you're doing things separately, but then you're still married together. Like, what did that process look for you guys as a younger married couple, new kid, and you're trying your best to chase after Jesus? Like, how did that all meld together?
I mean, we talked about everything. I mean, there was no, like, we only had one child, so that's easy to do. I mean, talk to me when you have 2 or 3. It's a little harder, but
got
you have
5,
to be much more intentional.
Hi.
Oh, who are you?
You still live here?
Yeah, so, exactly. You know, so but we just always, weirdly, we were also kind of facing, because so many denominations. I mean, there's a church on every corner,
Right.
and the team, because it's a parachurch, we have on staff and on the team, every denomination is covered. And so your closest friends were all from such totally different theological,
Right.
not just backgrounds, but where they were at the time. And we're like, why are we this denomination? Or what does it mean? We don't even know what, I don't think either of us could probably, even going to a Wesleyan university, could have given this checklist of the things
This
that,
is what Arminian is.
theologically,
Yeah.
doctrine-wise, I'm talking about. Not the big things, but the more fine things. And even as we individually struggled through those, like, we wanted to know why. You know, why is our hyper-Calvinist friends coming to us once a week trying to get us saved? Because we weren't.
How can someone as smart as you not see that John Calvin is right up there with the Apostle Paul? We're like, who's John Calvin?
I mean, that's just, I mean, we kind of knew, like, we learned about it, but we always weirdly, and I think that's weird because we were individually dealing, like, searching, but came to a lot of the same conclusions. I mean, not that we don't have differences on some things, but absorbing books and scripture and
that's what I think. One of the things that, I don't remember if it was John or both of you guys, or maybe it was a combination of all of it, that gave Hope and I peace was the fact that we didn't have to read our Bibles every morning together for us to be a successful Christian married couple.
We
could just...
Hey, Darcey, should we start doing it?
No.
But it was just this,
okay.
But it was this thing of like, you can both say yes to Jesus together, separately, and just talk about it. And it's going to happen. And it doesn't have to be this regimented at 7:30 a.m. after her makeup's on and you've showered and shaved your neck. You both have your cup of coffee. And Britton, you read. Because that's what you're... But I think that you guys, like, I don't even know if I really remember a moment, but there was just a freedom and like, oh, it doesn't have to look like what we assumed. Like, and so I think that's probably
and
where
we were never, it was natural to talk about things all the time, but we didn't have that. I mean, we never had a routine. There was never a routine in our life ever. So it was already difficult to think about having some type of...
But there were like deep, I mean, through our life. I mean, that was one of the things that first attracted me to Darcey, was this brilliant mind, deeply intelligent, that could articulate and would wrestle with these big things. I mean, it wasn't like, oh, this is what John thinks. Okay, here I am. I mean, if I came home with something jacked up, she'd be like, that is not true at all, you know? And we've been through we've had the weirdos come, you know. I mean, we don't have to go into all this. This podcast will be 3 parts, but you know, the weirdos that wanted to be our friends, and then we were like, oh, we're going to have community. Here's some friends, and then about the 3rd time we're getting together with these friends, we find like they're trying to sell us soap, you know, and be a part of a pyramid scheme.
Coke on them.
You know, to I'm coming home one day. This is what this friend said about theology, and then we're processing that, or this is what she heard at work today, or we'd go through a thing together. Man, do you think that's true? You know, and so we were having those, and you got to remember too, we're living in Charlotte, so 6, 7, 10-hour drives to family. There was some combo.
6, 7, 10. It was 12 and 16.
12 and she's better with numbers.
12 hours to your
12
family
and 16
to
yeah,
mine,
sorry,
so.
I'm thinking now that how close they are. Yeah, so it was there to Ohio or there to Michigan or you know, whatever. So she's always had deep faith and is a theologian. And she has been the queen my whole life because I would go towards the, here's an apologetics book.
Right.
Here's where I can go to war, and she'd be like, you know what? This Brennan Manning book about grace, I really think you'd enjoy that. And I'd be like, well, I don't want to read about grace. And then I'm reading it. I'm a puddle because I'm learning more about grace.
Right.
So there was a lot of sharing of books and stuff like that,
Yeah.
So it wasn't like we had our individual isolated faith.
No, it
Right.
wasn't.
But we never did the, nose to nose, knee to knee. How does this make you feel? Oh, my gosh. Yeah, no.
And probably that's just not how it's
Right.
not. Yeah, it's not in my nature.
Absolutely. So that's
But
cool.
kids are coming. I mean, what do we have?
Well,
we had three there.
No, so we Isabel, after I had her, because I had this great job that I had this a little more freedom, we took her on the next 3 mission trips with 60 teenagers.
Oh my!
She was 7 months old. We went 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks. All 3 of them were 3.5 weeks to Sweden, Denmark,
Holland.
and Germany. Not Holland. It was Sweden, Denmark, Germany.
Oh yeah, that's right.
London.
That was the one before.
And I'm with teenagers, but she did great.
Yeah.
It was like she was a pro at the traveling. And then Lily came, and was not so much of a pro at the traveling and having 2 kids
Right.
overseas
Big difference.
wouldn't have worked. But
Because Isabel's your prototypical firstborn.
Yeah.
Still to this day.
yeah, she could sit in a car seat for 12 hours on a trip, and besides it, getting out to get a diaper change and a bottle or whatever, she was.
Sucker in each hand.
That's
watching
probably why
Veggie
Lily and I
Tales.
get along so well. It's because we're both the second born.
Yeah.
Like, it is my world that
Yep.
you live in.
Yep, yep, absolutely. She's our Y2K baby.
Yeah.
We had Lily 3 years later,
Okay.
and still having to some of the fertility issues with like having to take medication and stuff for her. At that point, after I think I was 7 months pregnant, and Isabel at that time, we were having a harder time finding childcare for the 3 or 4 days I worked. John was able to do like 1 or 2 because of his schedule.
Right.
But we at that time had put Isabel in a home daycare, and she would just beg, "No, I don't want to go. Can you stay home?" And it was like, "Oh, that's it. I'm done." It's 7 months pregnant, but you were able to keep your insurance for a couple $100 a month back then.
Right.
Thanks Obamacare, but
Twice.
yeah. So we had Lily in 2000, and I'm staying home at this point, which was that's when John had to start teaching individual classes at a Christian school, coaching a club team just to feed us. Like I was bringing in 0 income at this point, and our fundraising hadn't our support raising hadn't gotten
I remember
to where
coming home from dropping off Isabel and saying to Darcey, whatever, I don't ever want to do that again. I'm tired of that. And she said something to the effect of, "I've been waiting for you to say it." And it wasn't cruel, and I'm. This is what I heard.
Yeah.
And because now I'm old, it was like, okay, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
And I didn't take that as negative.
Well, I didn't say that.
No,
It was
no.
like,
It
what
was
are we going
kind
to
of
do?
like,
What are we going to do? You know,
how is this going to happen? And then I was like, okay, I got to man up to this responsibility.
Right.
I want my kids to have my mom or their mom
Yeah.
all day at home. And so, yeah,
How
then the
was that?
schedule got crazier.
How was that transition for you? Now you have 2 kids. You're staying at home with them. Like, what did that process?
I mean,
look like for you?
there was no doubt. I had
Yeah.
no doubts about it. I at that point we had because we're in a ministry of young families. A lot of them, they all had little kids too, and so there was a natural community that I had. It was the natural community of people that all moved there. The South Charlotte community was another thing. It was like, hey, you want to be part of this play group? And we have a curriculum, and you're going to have this curriculum. I'm like, no, I don't do curriculum.
Non-GMO,
They're like, they're like 2 and 3 years old. And no, they're not free
Before
range.
everyone was. No. I'm saying they were all into those.
Right.
Yeah.
They invented essential oils, I'm pretty sure.
It was
South
just a very
Charlotte.
hyper parenting type of culture of your kids' hair looked perfect.
Right.
We were
had
bad
matching
parents.
outfits
We found out we were bad parents through some of our closest friends because we let our children watch SpongeBob.
No, we didn't. They didn't know SpongeBob. No, it was
It was SpongeBob.
it was like Arthur.
Was it Arthur?
Yeah. they watched Arthur and they couldn't believe it. And my daughter talked about Arthur to their daughter, and it was like, Arthur, isn't that like PBS? That's like,
It was
like
that
watched
kind of
Arthur.
stuff.
it's like
I
not
watched
a.
Arthur.
There's nothing.
So if I watched
controversial.
Arthur, you guys probably did screw it up.
Yeah,
No, I'm just
yeah.
kidding.
But yeah, so
Isabel said butt today.
yeah, I got that. She said the word "but," and I'm like, "That's all." No.
So did you ever experience? Because I know, just there's a lot of continuing to bring this back to some of our listeners and stuff like that. Like you're a stay-at-home mom. You had that moment in college where it was like, okay, like I think that this God's calling me to ministry. Like I have this desire to be a mom, to raise my kids and stuff. Was there like this reassurance that you were doing what God was calling you to, or was there a moment of like, is this what my life is going to be now? Like,
no, I did not have that. I didn't have any of those. Is this what I'm sure that's for some people that's
Right.
very normal and
Yeah.
common to have women that are like, this is what my life is going to be like. You know,
Yeah.
it might be out of necessity because daycare was too expensive to even work.
Yeah.
Or, like I said, I had a great community, and we had a great church, and our relationship was growing. Our faith was growing. It was in 1 year after Lily was born when we got pregnant, surprisingly. Like, was like, wait a minute, this isn't supposed to happen easy. Because, you know, we had
didn't have to do the treatments
years for
and- yeah.
Isabel and
Yep.
Lily, you know, and so, or Lily wasn't years, but it was still having
Yeah.
to go through process of that. And so we got pregnant when she was 1 year. And that's the one that was an ectopic pregnancy. So there was like, it was a dangerous situation where I had to have 3 surgeries. And also for a month, every other day had to drive into the city to get blood work because my body was still it was doubling in my pregnancy hormone. So my body was still saying I was pregnant even after I had had these 3 surgeries. And so it was this 30-day, 35-day process of procedure after procedure and medication and what's going on. Doctors are stumped. And a week after the miscarriage, but it was the ectopic pregnancy surgery was when 9/11 happens. So I'm home with a 4-year-old, 1-year-old, just gone through this loss, but also danger. And am I going to be able to have kids again? Because that's a huge risk with
Right.
ectopic pregnancy, which was my greatest fear. Was
Right.
I remember saying to the doctor when we went into surgery, and I said, I want to have more kids. Dr. Morris, and I'm like, please, whatever you have to do, I want to be able to have more kids. And he's like, we'll do what we can, you know?
Yeah.
So that whole process was kind of like we all, you know, we were hunkered down. 9/11 happened. So we were just, you know, kind of this little bubble, dealing with this medical crisis.
Right.
And then when I was finally given this, all clear, I guess, like, okay, you at least have a 50% chance of having more kids.
Right.
They were able to at least keep that. But probably a day or two after that, I'm sitting at home and I like can visualize being on the couch and all of it just like a good crash. And I'm sure it was severe, like tons of it physical, because I had postpartum depression with Isabel and Lily, but it didn't last more than 5 or 6 weeks. Not as severe, but with this, it was like it all just like a train hit me.
Right.
And I didn't know what was going on. And I went into full crying 18 hours a day, not eating, barely able. He'd hand me a saltine and a glass of water and I could have a sip or two. I couldn't take care of the kids. I couldn't function. Thought I was in like, you got to take me to the loony bin, John. Something's wrong.
Clinical
You know,
depression.
I mean, just severe.
Not
And
having a bad day.
just,
Right.
yeah.
Just
This lasted weeks. But after about the first week, he had to go back to work. I mean, he had taken all this time off for my surgeries and and then with 9/11 and everything, you know, was closed down for a while, but he had to get back to work. And you got to remember, no one talked about that back then. You didn't talk about with your good friends.
Especially in South Charlotte.
No, you did not talk about depression, postpartum depression, even miscarriages. You didn't talk about the loss. You didn't talk about anything, even with your close friends. And so we were just us two. We didn't call home. Well, first of all, I felt what does it matter? What are they going to do about it? There's nothing that's going to fix this.
I'm clueless about what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just such a depth, like a darkness that had come that I could not get out of. Like it was just impossible. Sleep a few hours a night and then it would just start over. Like wake up and it would just stay until bedtime. And we tried to stay busy, but there was nothing that really could help. And then after about a week of that is when he finally said, I'm going to call your friend and someone needs to stay here with you. And so he calls her, she comes, and of course makes me feel better. Like, you don't have to hide this. But thankfully it was that friend he called, because I don't know what I would have done if it was like, okay, you just need to buck up and you need to, snap out of this.
Is that Susie?
No, it was Lori.
Lori. Yeah.
And
that was Lori West. She's been on this podcast.
Yeah. So, and she, I don't remember how she felt like you need to call your doctor. So she called my doctor for me to tell, I don't know if it was even if I knew, but she knew that my doctor needed to know. And, which I thought, why would my doctor care? Like, I mean, that's like, just how now it's like so normal. Yeah. If someone was going through that, they would immediately go to their doctor.
Right.
But again, it was just something that wasn't talked about or dealt with. And so my doctor gets me on my phone. It gets me on the phone and it's like, why didn't you tell me? And it brought me in and started some medication, and we tried to find a counselor, and I had one. It was horrible. It was like almost stopped me from ever going to counseling again. It probably took another 10 years before I ever went to another one. But it still was like a step. I felt like I was taking more steps, that there was hope, for something to get better.
Yeah.
So we didn't just try to pray out of it.
Yeah.
Oh, we're praying.
Right.
But it was like, okay, God also gave us these things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
So that's happening. And I remember at one time saying to John, you got to call Pastor Jimmy. I got to go. I have to be prayed over or something. Like I can't do this anymore. And I think it ended up being, he might have been out of town, but I was able to meet with his wife, who we'd had somewhat of a relationship through Bible study, that we were both part in a small group. And so I knew her. And what was crazy to me is having a pastor's wife that was like so normal. It's like that was so like real with her own.
She didn't say bless your heart.
No.
Yeah.
And she didn't just give me Bible verses. Not that the Bible, not meaning that's not important, but she had gone through something similar after going through breast cancer, and had some similar like depression issues, and it just made me feel like, okay, I'm not crazy. This isn't something I did, or because it was hard to tell. There was so much physical going on that I know was part of it, but then the emotional, and then obviously there's a spiritual aspect to it too, and you have to kind of try to manage all three. But she was huge and helping. Came in when John left to go to the Middle East after 9/11. I'm like, two young ones at home going after what we had just gone through. Yeah. A few months later, he's already got this trip to the Middle East, and she came and stayed at my house with me for a few days before I was getting on a flight to go home, and so it just was a huge blessing, both her and her husband, just in how a huge church too, like 1,500 people. Why are they focusing? Why are they paying attention to us? So
yeah. So what was kind of, because you hit on something there that I think is important in the aspect that there were multiple aspects that you had to take care of and focus on. It wasn't just this is going on. Like, yes, there's a spiritual, there's a physical, there's an emotional side to all of this, and all three need care. Yes. It's not just, because I think that's when people deal with depression and different things like that, is they just lean to one direction and they ignore the other two, or the one. And, but I don't know, like in that aspect, I think what I'm hearing you say is like, it was a yes and, like, I'm going to focus on these three, all these aspects of this. But in that, to the spiritual sense, like what was kind of going on in your relationship with God at this time? Was there doubts that were starting to creep in, like shame that you were even feeling this way? Like what was going on in that?
I didn't really have doubts, definitely shame. Like it was always like, it wasn't doubts. It was like, well, of course this is happening to me. I'm me, it was like, there was never a doubt of why God. It was a why not, of course me, like that was more the realist pessimism. Pessimist in me. And so I don't think I understood the whole physical, emotional, spiritual at the time.
Gotcha.
I say that looking back
Right.
that there had to be all, but I think at that time it was whatever I can do to get out of this. Like whatever, because this is like there's nothing.
It's like a desperation.
Oh, there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
And being someone who already wasn't an emotional person who cried maybe 5 times in my, that was not to have day after day after day of this despair was just unlike anything I had experienced. And so I think when I started to kind of come out of it, I say out of it because it literally is like this fog that just envelops your soul that, when it hits. The next 5 years or so was whatever I can do to avoid that ever happening again. There wasn't what can I do in the health part to help with, it was, oh no, okay, I can never feel that again.
Right.
So if there was even a hint, it was avoid, distract, deny, numb, whatever I could do to get out of
just not going back
absolutely, whatever I could do to get out of that.
Yeah.
So I think I kind of ran, at that point was running from it, not going like, there really isn't there's the, why is it happening in the sense of what caused,
Right.
but it's also like, oh no, this can never happen again.
Yeah.
So
What would, I don't know if there's like anything encouragement to the people maybe listening to this that are in that, like in the depths of it, in the midst of it. I mean, we've had 2 episodes in a row that have kind of hit on this thing. So I'm just going to choose that God decided this is what needed to be talked about. But I don't know, like any encouragement you could give to a mom that is stuck in that space or anything. Looking back, I don't know if you could say something to Darcey at that time.
I don't know. I mean, I regularly have people in my life that I am helping through that. And I think the number one thing is if you have to talk to somebody who's gone through it, because if you have not gone through it, it is impossible for them to have an understanding. And the best thing that ever happened was having someone to talk to who said, I know exactly what you're feeling. Like that's literally what I needed to hear.
Because I'd never been there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't think I ever said, hey, snap out of it.
No, but it was, what can I do?
Yeah.
How can I fix? What can I,
I'm the positive, romantic guy.
Yeah, if I
and
can just
she's the
distract her,
cynical pessimist. It's like, hey, what are we going to do? And she's like, I just want to kill you.
But yeah, I think that is the biggest thing is having someone who knows how to say, I know exactly what you're feeling. And that's huge because it's like, oh,
pulls you out of
I'm
isolation.
not crazy. I'm crazy, but it's like you're thinking it's not just me.
Right.
It's not just some weird, phenomenon that happened to me. And then I think you do have to focus on all 3. And it's not going to be one answer. And it probably, so this is what's hard. And I was saying this to a friend recently who's going through this for her first time kind of. And there's some that it's a one-off, that it's like you're going to have some experience in your life that causes that. Like it could be the loss of a child and then there's those of us that are like, it's going to be the thorn you're going to have it for the rest of your life. It wasn't until I'm 53 now. It wasn't until I was probably 48, 7 or 8 where I finally accepted this is what I'm going to, there is no like,
when you look back and you see that like it's been there this whole time.
Oh, well, looking back before that, nothing had been like that.
Gotcha.
I mean, there's all, but I think in your 20s is normal for a lot of that to come out. Not that there aren't teenagers who struggle with it, but I meant a lot of people, it is their 20s or even 30s that it'll hit. So for those that, maybe have the clinical level that's going to stick, you do have to focus on all 3, but you have to focus on those sometimes in the health part and not in when you're in the tunnel, because it's really hard to hear any voices except your own echoing, when you're in the cave, when you're in the,
So this is just an outside observer, because I do feel like, I mean, that's a great picture that in fact, she gave me a book. And, when she'd read a book about her experience, she would be like, and this is more recent, she would say, hey, I want you to read this book. And the way I am wired is these books were like dragging me into like, these really dark spaces. So then it was more, hey, I want you to read this part. But there was even a book you read called The Cave, I think, or something like that. But she's using this, this picture of she's in a cave, I'm outside the cave. I'm like, hey, I'm out here, trying to, shine a light, but that's not my job, is to fix it,
Right.
right? But one thing that I've watched over the decades is, yes, it's been a thorn, but I think in a lot of ways, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, it's dragged you into more of a dependence on God. Because I've seen, even though God seems so far off in those moments, it would have been a lot worse if she would have turned from God. But that relationship with God, I think you've learned a lot about that, maybe,
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that I think sometimes some of us, like, if we didn't have that, I'm not sure how easily it would have been to drift away from God.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's no doubt that it brought me into a relationship with God that I never ever would have had.
Yeah.
If not for that.
It still sucks. I'm not saying that
Right.
that's a good thing.
Right.
But you can only see that looking back,
Right.
I think,
But yeah, it was, and I've probably had only 4 or 5 of those ever, types of, like, maybe not even as long. But it was a continual, like, like, it changes you if it's something you're going to deal with for, and I definitely was like, for a decade, okay, what's the answer? I'm going to find the answer. I'm going to find the type of counseling, the
scientist
book,
in
the medication, the whatever, the Christian book, whatever. The program, whatever
You've
it
read
was.
them all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
You've
it
read
was,
them all.
that's why it was like years ago when I was like, there's not going to be a completely whole side on this side of earth, and that's okay. But I also don't have those extremes either.
Right.
So it's like, but I think I had to go through all of those different to get to that, you know? So there isn't like, I never have a book to help people because everything helped a certain way, a little part at the time.
Yeah.
But, there are not a checklist of
because I think in the context of that, like, everybody's journey is their journey. And it's going to look similar in certain parts, but it's going to look different in certain parts too. But I think I love what you're saying of being, because it echoes some of the stuff that Bill also talked about community and stuff like that. But I think you even adding to the community aspect of being in community with somebody that's been through it, that can not just try to fix you in the moment, but can just be there with you and saying, listen, I know what you're going through.
Right.
I've been there.
Right.
And there's hope.
Right.
And it might not feel like there is right now, and it's okay. So I think that's important because people like John and I are very much so the like,
fix it,
how do
man.
I mean, you don't have, we can just fix it right now. We can just write, right now.
Psalm for
yeah,
you.
Yeah. In 37 minutes and 3 points, I can fix this.
Yeah, and then get throat punched.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
So,
but yeah, it is. It's definitely finding community and
for sure. So kind of, you're in Charlotte during all of that. When did kind of the transition to Northern Michigan, kind of because how many years in were you at that point?
So we, a year after losing the baby and all the procedures and all the, even that first bad episode, call it.
Yeah.
It was a year later when we had Sophie.
Legend.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's crazy because I think, that I can't imagine our family without Sophie, any of them.
Yeah.
But Sophie wouldn't be here,
Yeah.
if not going through that.
Yeah.
And so at some point when I was pregnant with her is when the details get a little like cloudy here, but I think some point when we were pregnant with her, we started feeling like maybe our time with the Eagles was done. Like we were starting to feel that John had started that summer that I was pregnant, started preaching with Forge. We didn't think full time with that was because I had at that point 3 kids.
Right.
Him traveling 15 days a month was not going to happen. We did all, the traveling part was.
Because at that time, before that, you were preaching some, but mostly it was leading tours and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
it
It would
wasn't-
just come. It was just birthed out of sports ministry.
Gotcha.
But through just like a relationship and having done some training, that's when it was like, hey, could you do this part time? We have so many events. We need more speakers. And so I'm starting to speak. And, I remember calling Darcey from one of them and being like, I think this is what I was made to do. Because I had fought it my whole life. And neither one of us had ever thought.
What was your perspective after that phone call? Was it like?
Well, there had been one offer, like at our church, Like
Well-
we had gone through that. We had entertained church ministry,
Gotcha.
but we don't want to need to go
Yeah.
into that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, but we had like I said, we both knew something,
Mm-hmm.
and we knew it was going to be ministry.
Yeah.
We want, he applied at some Christian high schools that he could do and still travel a little bit, like in the suburbs
Right.
with Forge. We interviewed at our church, which was great, but we would not have been able to do the Forge
Gotcha.
with that. That
The,
would have been
the mission at the time wanted us to potentially move to Brazil
yeah, they were
and-
talking
and
about
start an
possibly-
office there.
Yeah.
You know,
So we
What
had.
did you think of Brazil?
Oh, it was like, well, I think in my mind it was like, heck no, but I was open. It
Right.
wasn't like I wasn't
Yeah.
open if I felt that it was,
Right.
and then at
it
that
was on
time,
the beach.
yes, yeah, he kept saying, you could afford maids there because the cost of living is so low.
Right.
And that was like, maybe I will. But, so at that point, our church here, back at home, it had, almost fell apart. It had been down to like less than 20 people.
We're talking about the tab.
Yeah. Within a few years of that time, they had hired Tom Shelder, who really helped to rebuild a lot of the damage, and a lot of healing happened. And I had been there once or twice when we came home to visit, and he'd always said to John, "Hey, we could really, we don't really have a youth group." He was the only staff member.
Yeah.
He
So it
was
was like-
joking.
No, but it was like, hey, we just had a heart to want something
Right.
for we had 2 small churches in Buckley, no youth groups in either. So something like a community youth center. And so that was out there too. And he even asked our friends she was a stockbroker, he was a bond broker, "Hey, could you teach me how to do this?" And
I was tired of being poor.
yeah.
Yeah.
Not a money thing, but we had
The struggle
we were deep in the hole of trying to live on support. We don't have to go into all those details, but it's like, and it wasn't forever.
Yeah.
It was like some of our really good friends are millionaires. And what I was thinking in my head is, hey, for 5 years, could you just teach me how to do this number math thing? He could have probably taught her,
Right.
and she'd have
Yeah.
got it in a heartbeat.
Right.
And I remember us during this time. Sorry, Darcey, I didn't mean it, but remember me asking that at dinner? And do you remember what her response to me was, Marie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she said, we could teach you to do this, but you wouldn't be happy. And she knew. I mean, she knew. They were good friends. They knew
We've
the
just gone to
impact
dinner
she
with
had-
them in their Bentley.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think I could be happy.
Yeah. But
She was right.
so we had all of them were being
Right.
talked about, except that we knew Forge was going to be part of it. I think we both knew that. It was like, okay, but then what?
Right.
We knew not full time, but you could live anywhere. So
Yeah.
it was then what? And the thought of going back home, having family nearby was like huge. That would have been great because that's the hard part about being away is like without that
'Cause you
help
guys-
and support.
Because your
and-
family, just for the people listening, was nowhere near Charlotte.
Oh
as
no!
well.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They're
they're
in
12
Indiana,
hours, 16 hours. Yeah, there's
Ohio.
just.
Yep.
I mean, they would come once a year and visit. We'd go there once or twice.
Right.
But that was pretty much it.
Yep.
And so at this point, we're going through all of this, and we decided it was kind of down to the Brazil thing because they were going through a lot of organizational changes with the Eagles and starting this international department, and that's where. Are we going to start an office in Brazil? And then the Buckley thing became a legit offer where he was going to be able to travel and all that. So
I think it was part time.
well, it was kind of like you have the freedom to travel. And then outside of that, you would be helping build a youth center here. And so it was kind of down to those two. And we both decided separately to pray about it, but not. I mean, we had talked about it to death. All the but this and this, but then think about this and this. And the biggest negative for me, the thought of moving was I can't get back to that church. I can't. There's no, and be part of it.
Yeah.
Like not just go to it, but even though I didn't know what the church was like at the time, I had all that baggage.
Yeah.
And it was like, I don't know if I can go back there. And so we had in that process, we have Sophie. Or no, I don't know if we had her yet or I was still pregnant with her, but Forge invited us to go to Colorado to our first youth speaker retreat that they were having. And went to that and just, felt at home, like this is our family, even though we we had your brother was on staff there, I think at the time, but we that just solidified that this was what we wanted to at least be part of. We even talked to them about, you don't really have a part-time itinerant, but would you consider a, part-time, which would require more of a 7 to 10 days a month commitment average, of when you would be committed to speaking. Dwight Robertson was speaking on finding God's will. You've probably heard it. It's the same message he's probably given I've heard it, but I don't know that even after I've heard it since then, if I could find the part that spoke at that time to me, because we are still separately praying about it. We didn't want to kind of try to sway the other. We
was
wanted
that what?
to
So
know,
separate was just so.
Yeah, we wanted God to speak to both of us on what, without feeling like one was swaying the other towards something,
Yep.
And
Same exact thing. Hope and I did.
Yeah, and the part that really stuck out, and we were both we wrote 3 pages of notes, I think, was when he said, and he might not have even said it because I've not heard him say it since I've heard that message. If maybe he's changed it, or the Holy Spirit was just, that's what he wanted me to hear, was when God is showing you his will, he's not going to give you any of the details, any of the logistics. It doesn't make sense. There's not because all the things we were checking off, but what about this? But what about this? Well, we got a house to sell in one of the worst housing markets since 2008. That was like the one before that, at least in North Carolina. It just like, okay, we have to make this decision without thinking of, it has to be about not all the details.
Yeah.
And, how do I tell, how do I tell the pastor's wife that I'm leaving?
Right.
That I'm taking another child away. Thanks, Britton.
It is good to know that it wasn't just us, though. Like, I think that there's a consistency in that's how God moves his pieces and people around is, I'm going to give you what you need to say yes to me, and I'll take care of the rest.
Because he gave it all to you. It's not really faith.
No, 100%.
If it was easy, now there are times that there's a easy A or B, and they both make sense, and they're both good, and you choose, and he's not going to give you one or the other. And,
but I think the crazy thing, too, that people limit God to is so often I see people limiting God to their ability to make the right decision. Because I am of the camp that if you guys would have chose Brazil, I think God would have moved just as much in and through you guys' lives in Brazil as he did in Buckley. And so it's not as much we have to make the right decision as the heart behind. Like, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that's bad theology.
Yeah, no,
but
I do. I think there's
good.
a lot of A and B, and they both are okay. It's
the difference is there was a moment beyond just this wasn't a list out the pros and cons.
Right.
Like there was a moment while we're praying.
Yeah.
And it came to Darcey. It came to Darcey.
Yeah,
not to me.
but so I was praying about it specifically, like very specifically, like, okay, God, we're not messing around. I need to know. But it was, are we supposed to go to Buckley? And that's kind of where, like, should we even be considering this? And strongly as can be, felt God saying yes. But I thought, no, I have a suggestion. I just made myself say that. So I'm going to say it again, but make myself say no, just to prove that it was like power of my own suggestion to, and again, and it was clearly yes. And I remember just being like, oh, I don't want to go back there. I've finally been set free from that place. And not an audible voice, but so clearly felt God say, I've set you free from that. Now go set others free, help set others free. And it was like, okay. And I knew, and I think it was a day or two before I told John, because I thought, am I sure?
Maybe he'll change his mind.
Maybe he'll tell me
the moment
different.
she said that, and I've said this, that sounds like something God would say. And it was like God spoke by his Spirit through her voice.
Yeah.
Like the moment it came out of her mouth, I knew that we were moving to Buckley.
Yeah.
Because I knew, and I don't mean any disrespect or any whatever, I knew the level of pain that my wife had endured.
Yeah.
And legit church hurt.
Yeah.
Like, I just stopped there. And the fact that she was saying, we're doing this. That was as big a deal as her saying, I'll go back into the darkness of my deepest depression. That's what God told me to do. And it's like, she's not crazy,
No.
So the fact that she was saying to do that, I'm like, oh, here we go.
This is hitting home, because I remember there were so many times over the past, almost 3 years that I have said the statement, I'll never go back to Tulsa.
Just don't ever say that, bro.
There's no way I'm going back.
You should have told me that, because I would have told you stop playing.
I've told people that.
You just ticked off God.
Right, I believe that, and all, but I don't think I could have. I don't think if it was up to my own fruition and ideas, but hearing Hope say, "What do you think about Tulsa?" And I was like, "What?" I don't.
Yeah.
I don't think about Tulsa.
Right.
But I think I agree with what you're saying in that sense of just, I don't know, God knows how to use the strong-willed, awesome wife to lead the idiots.
We decided, okay, that's it. And we still were like, do we wait and sell our house? Which again was a horrible market. Do we, what do we do? And there was a point where it's hard to stay, all these organizational changes, it's hard to stay long when you kind of know you're leaving.
Right.
And it's like, well, where do we fit in there? And so we just made the decision at some point, we're going to leave in November, whether the house sells or not.
20 years ago this month.
Yeah. So whether the house sells or not, Buckley found us a rental we had never seen. My mom had seen it and said, yeah, it's great, but it's like they found us a rental. We knew we had a place to live. Would we be able to pay the mortgage still? But we just decided we were leaving. And that was hard, because at this point we had built some seriously close relationships with a lot of people.
Especially in our church.
Yeah. And it was our family for 10 years, even though the first couple of years were really hard. And our kids were, at least at that point, 6 and 3 and 7 months old when we moved. So both Isabel and Lily, they loved coming to both grandma's houses, but they were excited. They they weren't there long enough to kind of have, and they're like, oh, cool, got an adventure, and so, that November we moved up here. I think within a week, John had a Ford trip to go on, but I stayed at my mom's. And I'm like, I got 3 kids and I got all this help. This is great, So it was, we got snowed in. I think that first,
I was in culture shock.
Huge snowstorm hit. We couldn't even get in our driveway because we didn't have plowing set up. We didn't have any of that, So
we didn't have the proper clothing.
How cold were you?
Just
I saw the
cold.
picture you posted. I think you posted a picture the other day of everybody outside
within
in the
a couple
snow,
days of moving.
and you were smiling. But I've seen
I've
seen your smile when
he
you mean
didn't
it.
mind because he was going to
Puerto Rico,
Ecuador in February. I think
Guatemala. I got to preach in California.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like every winter there were events in warm places.
I had one of those my first winter here. Not that March, but my first deep winter here. And John's like, hey, I got this guy that works at a Christian school. I can't go, but I want you to go do it. I gave him your name, Southwestern Christian. And I was like, yeah, Southwest, I'm in. Southwest Minnesota. He left out the Minnesota part.
That's even colder. But I think that's when I found out that northern Michigan, this little pocket up here, I'm told is second only to Seattle in cloud cover.
Oh yeah.
And so it's gloom. Michigan people are different. I mean, South is bless your heart and kind of some sweet tea and you have a great day, sweetheart. And here they'll cut you off in the church parking lot, and maybe tell you your number.
But I tell you what, I was so excited after being here a few weeks, and I had to go to Home Depot or Walmart or something for the house, and I was in like flannel pajama pants, and I thought, I'm gonna go, and it's okay.
Yes, because
in the South you
do that.
No, but it was crazy to you felt like, and you didn't. This is my issues.
Right.
This was not. I don't know anybody that said this, but just being in the culture of, you felt like you had to dress up and just to go to Target or just to, you didn't, but it was hard to feel like you could just be, And one of the funny stories is my mom was working at the school that Isabel went to. She was the only one in school. And
at Buckley School.
Showed up showed up in the cafeteria, and one of the cafeteria workers said, "Well, are you Miss Pat's granddaughter?" She goes, "Yep, I'm here, and this is where my mom told me that there's no Christians here." Because she went to a Christian school, and I was trying to explain to her.
I'm a Christian, and there's no Christians
Yeah.
here.
And the way she heard things was so crazy.
Right.
I said, "Oh, you go to little Sunrise Christian School. Well, you're going to be going to Buckley School. It's not a Christian school, but it's a really great school. And I went there, and a lot of the same teachers are there." Well, she heard that as
I'm the only Christian in this
I'm the
school.
only one.
Bring it on.
She announced
I'm
that.
a little missionary.
Yeah. And so, anyways, that was
That's funny.
just a big adjustment, but it was great having family.
Yeah.
And so yeah, we a
put
year
you
later
through.
had Gabby.
Yeah. Darcy's leading a small group
No,
of teenage
I don't know,
girls.
2 years later.
You're
They're
in
all
a small
3 years.
group?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah,
she
he
did
asked
that
me
for
to do that. I was like, no, I
and
can't
you loved
do
it,
this.
didn't you?
No.
Not at all?
I mean, no. It was hard.
Yeah.
Looking back, yes, it was great, but it was hard.
You know,
every
there's
week
adult
because-
women that go to our church that were in that group,
Yeah.
and they still talk to me about it.
Really?
Yeah. Like, she's like, I didn't know what I was doing.
who was
I don't
in
know
your
what to
small
do.
group?
This is
Nora.
the worst.
Oh,
You know?
okay.
Anna Winograd.
Anna Radcliffe.
Radcliffe now.
People's
Gosh.
names change.
Yeah, I know. But yeah,
Ashley
there were
Brown.
6 or 7
I remember when Hope
girls
first
that-
came up here, and she was like you do student
Yeah.
ministry.
Exactly.
Yeah, teenagers
exactly.
scared me.
And she's
I
like,
was not
and
interested.
then she did her first small group, and now she's like, I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
like, how I'm going to function not doing, like, she just loves that aspect
Yeah.
of getting to be a part of all this stuff. Yeah, so
yeah.
you move up here, you're doing
Yep.
all that. You got 4 kids now,
Yes.
4 girls. How was this, like, coming back to this church? Like,
Well, so
Oh, like,
yeah, we
you're not in your small group.
of course, getting to know the pastor here. I mean,
Yeah.
we knew it wasn't like it was.
Right.
So immediately there wasn't this. There was a real desire to get a youth center going in the community. They just jumped in when the old firehouse was. That was like basically a
now
storage
the food
unit.
pantry.
Yep. The whole community jumped in, and the youth group was great. Though, one thing I didn't say is that when we did come, we thought we'll do this for 2 years, and then we'll kind of reassess. Because again, church ministry wasn't where we thought what we were. It's not that we were. I wouldn't say we were running from it. We just didn't think that that's
Right.
what we would be doing. And so it was 2 years in, and John's told that story where we were like, okay, we've done the 2 years. We're going to.
We've established a youth group.
We had talked.
Yeah.
We had gone to. We thought about Indy, where it was still close to
Yep.
our family, my family. It was where his family lived. We thought it's a smaller city. I mean, I don't know, maybe not, but it felt smaller.
Right.
We didn't know really what he was going to do, but we had actually stopped even getting paid for 6 months because we were transitioning out. At this time, we lived in
Here.
the parsonage. Yes.
Gotcha.
Without a plan really, but we didn't
Right.
feel, we knew he had already talked to them about, like, I'm going to be transitioning out.
Yep.
And then that's when the pastor had resigned to go back into family and marriage counseling, and they had asked him to.
How old were you guys at this point?
35,
30s,
36.
mid-30s?
She
Yeah.
she knew they were going to ask before I did.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, when
knew
I
they
got
were
the
gonna
call,
ask.
I hung up and I told her, and we're stunned. And then she goes, "They're going to ask you to be the pastor." And I go, "I don't want to be the pastor." And she goes, "They're going to ask you." "They're not going to ask me." "Yes, they're going to ask you." And then I think we maybe talked a little bit, but yeah, that's the first time it was even, because it wasn't even on our radar. It's not something I desired.
Yeah.
I-
What was
And
your
we-
thoughts of becoming the pastor's wife?
Oh,
you'd been
yeah.
the
so
missionaries-
if it was not for my experience with the pastor and his wife at the large church we went to in Charlotte,
In one of the darkest times of your
I would not
Yeah.
have. I wouldn't have even thought it was possible because
because
I thought,
they
I
did
couldn't
it
have.
different.
Yeah.
What was different then
There was a
that made you think you could do it?
and this was actually made clear to us when they were interviewing him, that there is no expectation at all on you as a wife to do anything. It was like said.
Yeah.
At
At the interview in Charlotte?
Yes.
Okay.
When this is before we had
Yep.
kind of gotten down to the 2 things that we were trying
Yeah.
to decide what to do. She was just, there was an authenticity, a genuineness, like just not
She was normal.
not
Yeah. She
was
afraid
hilarious,
to talk
but-
about the things that were hard,
Yeah.
or it was
She
just,
wasn't afraid to talk about her husband's faults.
Yeah,
I mean, she was
and
very
he wasn't
open.
either. I mean,
yeah.
it was just
Are
very.
you afraid?
We could have a whole podcast.
He's gonna let you down.
Oh, yes, that's right. That's right. Oh, yeah, I say that. I just said that recently to someone. But yeah, I mean, I had no idea, zero idea what was ahead and what that meant. So that's probably good, because if I had, I probably would have said, "Oh, heck no, we're not doing this." I mean, just meaning how hard it was going to be.
Yeah.
That's why it's good to not know like, necessarily how hard something's going to be. So yeah, it was kind of like we both knew there wasn't a lot of worry that it was the wrong decision. We just thought we'll
And it was
do this.
kind of a interim thing too. We're like, okay, we'll try it.
well, we told them let's
let's
do
do it
this
for
for 6 months, and then you guys
We'll
can
see.
decide to give.
Yeah.
So yeah, at some point in there, I don't even know if I had Benji then or a year later. But we were in the parsonage, so I think it was somewhere in there. We had Benji,
Legend.
legend.
Look at him over there.
Just being legend.
No.
So
I don't care what you have plans today, Benji.
That's
It's
right.
my podcast.
he's like 2 in a row, 3 in a row.
Yeah.
No, Andy's been helping do the set on stage. So
Don't worry, bro. I'm going to buy you
he
Chick-fil-A.
got out of homeschooling this week, so for a lot of days.
You're welcome,
so he's
Benji.
happy.
Yeah.
So yeah, we kind of no idea what that meant.
Yeah.
Meaning just what being in church ministry can do to you, to your soul. What is it's rough.
Yeah.
But so yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of.
So started that, and then it was just easy after that.
It was just
Oh,
great.
gosh.
No one moves away.
Yeah.
Oh, we could have a whole nother one just on the
Yeah.
last 17 years.
What would
Yeah.
you say? And you don't have to unpack all of it.
Yeah.
Because I know Benji just told us we have to wrap it up. But no, just I think in the last, since John's became the lead pastor, was like in the lens of your changed life story, like where have you seen, and maybe there's multiple answers, but where have you seen God kind of just continuing to mold and work in your life over the past, 20 years,
Right.
17 years? I don't know.
Yeah. So I mean, again, I'm still having a lot of the same struggles with depression on and off. I think I finally got to the place where I quit running from like really getting vulnerable and getting help. And sometime like at age 40, so it was like 13, 14 years ago, is when I finally met Joe Kelly. And he's like, "Oh, so you're the pastor's wife, all those people I'm seeing every week." I remember
you.
being like,
Joe Kelly,
"Yes,
the Jedi.
I got to get to know the
Obi-Wan Kelly.
But yeah, it was just this real kind of during a bad time where it was the first time that I was like, God, I will do anything, whatever you want me to do. And felt clearly again, and it's just like been a handful of times where I've just clearly felt like a clear answer where it was like, but will you be willing to sit in this pain? Like, is that, because before that, I'm running from it.
Right.
I'm doing whatever I can to avoid, whatever I can do to just not ever feel that again.
Right.
And so it was really clear that I was like, yeah, I'll like whatever, like if you need to change me through it, whatever, so I'll go through it if that's what you need me to do And so I think that was a time where it was another pinnacle time where I changed direction. Because I think at that point, I'm like, I'm running on the coattails of prior obediences.
Yeah.
It's like, but I did all these huge things for God that were brave. I'm good for a good 5-10 years. I don't need to do anything else. Don't ask me.
Dang.
I've got my
yes was
time
big
in.
enough.
Yes. It's like, it was, it's, so yeah.
I said yes way back there. That's
Yeah.
brilliant.
Such a good point.
Yeah.
That's
So I think that's easy to do.
Yeah.
It's like when you've had big
brilliant.
things, and it's like, oh, so
I'm good for a while.
yeah. So yeah, that was, and I think I started to see also, because you're never, okay, I really think I can say never here, but he did this once to me. I will never get on stage.
May the odds ever be in your
Yes.
favor.
I really don't have problems saying that. He did get me on stage once when we were first married, and I said, if I had known, if I had like really been, I would have said, You are not. I'm not doing it. Refuse to.
Oh, so sorry.
Yeah.
We got to go all the way back to
I'm going to book you guys for an event and do a Q&A
1990
with you and
Yeah.
Darcey. Now.
92.
No, okay, I'll do the short version. You'll give the long version.
No. It was a missions thing
Yeah.
at our church, and we have to talk about support.
Yeah.
And my team
It was
that
our
was
first mission
terrible.
conference.
That I'm coaching the Indiana Wesleyan women's
0 and
soccer
18.
team. Her sister Dory's one of my captains, and we actually made the playoffs.
They made it to district in Wisconsin.
We got to go to Minnesota,
Yeah.
babe. You
Or
got to do the talk. I'm a horrible person.
To
I'm
a church at
apologizing.
1200. I've
Did
got
you
to
do it?
stand up.
I'm apologizing in public
Did
you kill it?
for begging
No.
you to
You
do
probably
it.
did.
No, I didn't.
I
Everyone told me she killed it.
I bet
no,
you did.
didn't. No,
I'm telling you, there's going to be a relationship Q&A someday.
No,
These
I
two
don't
have
know.
just meant so much
Because
to
that
hope a
was
nice marriage.
that was the first year of our marriage.
First
She
year,
would
yeah.
not do it in year
No.
10, 15, or now.
2, 3.
Forget it.
No.
She would leave the marriage.
I would have said no. I'm
But
sorry.
in year 1, she was still hungry. She was like, "All right."
So yeah,
So brave. So
but
brave.
I started to think to see that that's when I got involved with women's ministry and gosh, through this whole time I don't want to forget to say that I don't know what we would have done without Tim and Heidi being on staff and they're just the impact they had on us and how much they helped. We would have been gone probably year 1 if not for that. But so I think she was the Tab women leader, and I got for 4 years I think it was when he went to kindergarten because it was like, oh, empty nest, my last one's home.
Right.
That was the start of and got really involved in that as like I got to do something or I'm gonna die,
Right.
like I gotta do something now.
Can't just sit here.
And just kind of felt like, okay, it doesn't have to be a stage. You don't have to have a microphone. You can be an at-home mom, but what ways are you helping others go through some of the things that you are, which is the things you've experienced?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be able to help a lot of people through a lot of different things, but there is areas, obviously,
Yeah.
that I could, and not in any formal, no program, no group.
You should
no-
start a ministry where
Yeah.
you just text people back.
Yeah.
Because some of the text messages I've gotten from
Yeah.
Mama Darcey have revolutionized just in the past month. I mean,
I give
think
a lot
you
of
could-
information.
you
I try
could
to.
Oh, you'd
My
be-
kids make fun of
How
me
much
for
money
how much
you could make
Yeah,
in
I don't
today's
know.
world if you just somebody texted you and then you responded.
I don't know about that.
The ministry's
It's a
called
text
I'll be
response.
honest with you.
Yes, I'll be. Yeah,
I don't want to see you. I don't want to leave my house,
Yes,
but I will
it's
text
just
you
a
back.
text.
You may not like it.
because looking back, every time you knew when there wasn't a genuine answer, and it did nothing to help. It was the hard things that were said
Yeah.
that that helped. And so so I kind of just through people I meet, nothing formal, nothing.
Right.
There's no group that I lead. There's no, but it's I don't know. People somehow find me, and
I love
that's
it.
what. But
Well, one of the greatest ministries that she has, and I would like all the Tab women
what's
to
he gonna
hear
say?
this, is that when I come home every day, she's standing at the door going, Johnny V, Johnny V.
Was that at the Springs?
Yeah.
When you got asked that?
Yeah. So
now that I've been there,
so someone who
I
had-
can fully see
Yeah.
just that
A
whole
sweet
experience.
That was
Guys.
sarcasm, Tab. Yeah.
a sweet guy who John had been speaking at this youth group for his whole high school, and he's now out of high school, and he's listening to him speak to the current high school youth.
At the hottest camp in the world.
Yes, 110
He's a soccer
outside,
guy.
and it's an outside church.
Now he's like a surgeon.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
No,
he's
but
a
he said
brilliant guy.
something like,
Yeah.
What's
He
it?
sat down next to you in the Tab.
"Hey, I'm telling a story."
Sorry. You've been waiting for that.
That's your
Hey,
outtake,
come on,
Lily.
we got it. Yeah.
That's the only part I want.
know.
The live that
I
we
told her
post
I
on
get full
Instagram.
approval.
Yes.
The
Full
live we get
approval.
on Instagram is just Darcey saying, I'm
Hey,
telling
tell
the
the
story.
Yes. And he's like, "What's it like living with Johnny V?" Because they all called him Johnny V there. And I said, when he comes home every day, I meet him at the door and say, Johnny V, Johnny V. Total sarcasm. He looked at me like,
She crushed it.
hurt,
just
like,
crushed.
and it was just, but it was that moment of, listen, there's nothing different,
Yeah.
about him than any other. Like, don't put him on a pedestal, and this is before church ministry.
I remember
You know.
the first time I really talked to Darcey. I'm sure we talked in passing at different events or whatever. was in you guys' basement after watching some stand-up comedy.
We'll not say who.
And John just goes, Darcey, what does Britton need to know about the Tabernacle?
Mm-hmm.
And she just dead serious looks at me. He's going to let you down. I'm going to let you down. We're all going to let you down.
Yep.
Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
I was like, this woman's a legend.
Yeah.
And
yeah, because I think I said to you when you told us you were leaving that being in church ministry feels like death by 1,000 goodbyes.
Yeah.
Thanks, Britton. But
or 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
1,000 goodbyes.
And not always bad.
Yeah.
I mean, we have great relationships with many people but just in the sense that, and I heard this once, and I don't know how true of this isn't like a scientific study, but
pretty close.
That most people lose 5 to 7 major relationships in their life, not counting like marriages breaking up, but friendships, 5 to 7 in their adult lifetime, not counting high school and college, but like pastors and their wives lose 5 to 7 a year. And it's probably true. Yeah. And it's at first was the first 10 years was probably us like trying to not have that happen and make everybody happy. And and they just cut. It always cuts, but the amount of people, I'm not talking about people choosing just to leave, like go into a different direction.
Or being called, like you hope to be.
But I mean, so many that just are, you don't know it. You don't, and instead of, hey, I disagree with this, which everyone has a right to do. I disagree with this direction or, it's the scorched earth, question the integrity of everyone on, staff and especially that guy, him, great friendships that were very important just cut off. Yeah. Not because we chose that, but just, and it's happened time after time after time that it's so, like there was a time where I really resented John over it and resented the church. It's like, and I just arm's length everybody. And I finally said, would you quit hiring people I like? Yeah. I think when you were hiring Ben, it's like, don't hire Ben. I like Ben. Yeah. He's going to look you in the eye and tell you all the ways you failed him and then not want to be friends. And, and it's like, there was this real like arm's length. Like, I don't want to get to know, any of you because it's going to hurt. Yep. And so, that was just a huge, and it did get to the point where I, we had to make some boundaries of John, I can't hear about you can't even tell me about it. Like it was probably during this time of real resentment about it. Like this isn't fair. This, I am sick of this. And so, we had to have some real boundaries about, because we had before that would talk about everything. And it's like, you got a lot of people you can talk to. Yep. I don't. And people don't realize how utterly lonely it can feel up at the top, and meaning like quotes. Sure. We're not really at the top, but in the sense of those making choices, and especially for the pastor's wife who doesn't have a group of people they can go and talk to necessarily, because there's a sense that, well, that's their pastor, or that's whether it's about marriage or depression, or like, who do you talk to? Who do you
our marriage is perfect.
Yeah. Who do you talk to if it's like, listen here, we need a break. We need a sabbatical. We need, and so it's.
Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know, what else would you want? Is there anything else that you would want the podcast listeners, the congregation, to know that they may not know about either this role or about me? Because I've thrown this out there. We haven't really talked about it deep. Is like Darcey's a sponge of knowledge, and sometimes if she has insomnia, she's passing stuff on to me so fast, like I can't keep up with all this reading and research that you're doing on whatever thing that you're on. During the pandemic, of which will not be named, she was legend and kept. That was a ministry. Jokes. We need to talk about that as a ministry.
I just remember being the first one who got the thing, and the amount of. I've never been more prepared to heal then through 6 text messages and 4 strategic
You
deliveries.
mean the last few weeks?
No, I'm talking about when I got COVID for the first time.
Yeah.
And I was the
yeah,
first
yeah.
person on staff.
Yeah.
And my mom was down in Oklahoma. I wasn't
Yeah.
even dating Hope at this point. Or maybe he was. Ooh, that's not going to go well. Hope and I had been dating for a minute.
Yeah.
She doesn't listen to the
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah.
But I just remember 4 strategic deliveries, all expendable people that Darcey was okay with them being gone. You were one of them.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
But it was
Yeah.
like, these meds and this, and I read this, and don't do this, and
Right.
put that thing on your finger, and you tell me what it says. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it was, but yeah, like I've wondered how difficult it is, even to sit week after week after week, and I'm the primary teacher,
Right.
but she also knows all of my flaws. How hard is that?
Yeah.
Like, am I Darcey's pastor? No, I'm her husband.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in so many ways, you pastored me. Not the rubbing my back when I'm in the fetal position the wee hours of the morning. It's usually like
Every Sunday.
It's like, you're going to come out here and be with the family, or are you just going to isolate? That type of thing. But what about this role would you want them to know, or even about me that they don't know that they might assume? Because you're great at popping the balloon in a good way. Yeah.
I think that what I think I would want people to know is that it's okay to have differences and disagreements, but the people that just love to find the one thing that I think come to church every week, and they're mature Christians that want to find the one thing that bothers them, that love to come, and then it's like John and the finger pointing and all that, is that it doesn't just impact him, it affects his whole family, and that everything that happens in the church affects the whole family. If I'm tired of having to go to my kids and say, when they say, over the years, why is so-and-so not coming over anymore in our life? It's like, are we not friends anymore? And it's trying to explain to children why these broken relationships or what's going on that they don't understand, and they're hearing things outside, and we don't want to get them involved because it's not fair to even get them involved. So trying to protect them so that everything that's said has an impact on a family, and that, so just to be aware of that. So at least have some grace, I guess, when you come, or not to, don't do it on a Sunday afternoon. Don't,
Your long text
and
message
they're usually
on Sunday
not,
afternoon.
The issues are usually not theological either.
Right.
Or it's something that they try to make theological, or, and I don't know. There's probably a mountain of things that you want to say.
No, I'm good.
I love it. Thanks for coming on the podcast. It wasn't that bad, was it?
It's going to be. I'm not going to watch it.
No,
but
nobody watches it.
No,
nobody watches it. It's okay.
No,
I haven't
I'm not
watched it
going to watch.
since, like,
No, I watch them, but I won't watch.
Oh, you actually do?
Yeah, but I won't watch.
Nice.
I won't watch this.
I haven't watched an episode since like episode 3.
Well,
And the minute we
you're
could see
doing
each
them,
other,
so.
I was like, no, we can't do that. I can't look at that.
Somebody
I'll listen to ones that I'm not on.
just a couple weeks ago, super friendly person. This happens a lot, but it just happened again. I'm in the third space between services on a Sunday, and this woman is like, oh, da 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 da, and this is my husband, and we're talking, and then she was like, I don't believe I've met your wife. You are married. I've heard you talk about that, and I don't know who your wife is, and da 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 da. And I remember saying, and that's exactly how my wife likes it. You've just blessed her.
I know. I
she's
remember
not
when
like-
Hope heard that she didn't have to go to every service if she didn't want to,
Yeah.
and that it was okay, and she was like,
Doesn't have to play the piano and run the children's program and serve in 5 areas.
Yep.
It's-
And
I mean,
that's
that
actually-
may be what
I
you
mean,
want to do, but
no, I think even in the process of us transitioning to a new place, there's been so much that we've learned here that she's learned from you that she's taking with her. And so it's just been cool seeing and I think what Hope has learned, and I know she's learned this from you without you ever even teaching it, is exactly what you said, is you were just yourself and you did what God called you to, and he used you to make an impact in the way he designed you to make an impact. And it wasn't about, you need to teach, you need to be on the stage, and you need to do these things. It's like, no, you be Darcey, and I'll take care. But just Hope, even in this process, the people that have came and they're like, man, like that coffee we had meant something. And she's like, that would have never happened if I would have been trying to be something that I wasn't. So thank you, because I think that God's used you to shape and mold in this model of what it actually means to chase after Jesus and just be yourself and not try to be something you're not. And I know it's impacted my wife, so that's been awesome.
Yeah, I wanted to add, I would not possibly ever have survived a ministry or marriage as long as I have without the unique way that God made you. And it's a unique partnership. We're completely opposite in a lot of ways, and we're completely on the same page in a lot of ways. And, you know, it's a beautiful thing. But the whole giving God your yes, there's times when it's real easy, like what you're doing right now. You're going to go to Tulsa, and you know the town, and you know the environment, and you're going to be surrounded by people all day. And it's Britton. It's Britton B, Britton B, Britton B. And Hope is like, I'm here. Hello. You know, and her
and Target are going to bond.
Yeah, well, just the fact that she's saying yes. I mean, it's so similar.
And I've learned from you guys in that, because it would be so easy.
Her yes is easier than your yes.
Harder.
It's harder.
Yeah,
your
100%.
yes is easier than hers. So my yes was easier than hers. I've moved my whole life, and I've dragged her all over the world.
Yeah, and I think what I've learned is, as a husband, I'll be a better husband because I've seen that aspect of, because it'd be easy to go there, transition in, hang with my boys, and forget that she doesn't know anybody. She's never been here. So from those aspects, there's been so many lessons. And I'll just say it, when Darcey cooks, she cooks enough. There's always enough
that from my
food.
mom. You got to have enough.
Meat and potatoes, man.
Yes.
There's going to be
The
meat
pizzas.
and a carb. Yeah.
The pizzas are my favorite. But
I learned
Benji,
that from Brian. So
what's up, man? Any questions you want to ask your mom that she has to answer?
no. He still gives me a grunt when I ask him a question, so that's all I get.
Well, podcast family, thank you guys so much. Darcey likes coffee, good coffee.
Yeah,
so
don't
no
give me
free
the
shout outs, Nespresso.
Nespresso. Yeah, no free shout outs to
Because
Nespresso.
we know that crap ain't free.
Yeah, sorry, no joke. I
But
hide
hey,
it from my family.
Yes, love it. Hey, till next time, Tab family, this is John, Darcey, the Vermilyas, I guess, Benji, and Britton signing off.